Welcome to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. I want to welcome you to the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast. Flawed and Foolish and me and him sat over there. Actually, we've got two fantastics today. We've got Ludwig sat at the back already, painting me half naked or whatever she's doing. And obviously by Harpreet Singh, we've got you here today. You are our fantastic guest for the day. There's a variety of topics that I'd love to speak to you about with regards to both your work, your childhood, your social media stuff. I think it's very interesting. And obviously we learned quite a bit about you from last week with Ludwig's conversation as well. So if you are happy to go, one, I just want to welcome you to the podcast. Two, you had no choice on the podcast.
Yep, that's true.
We were going to rock up here anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even better because Ludwig's looking after my kids as well, so it's even great. So no, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on. And if you're happy, can we delve into your life?
More than happy.
Yep. That's fine. First question, it's usually the most difficult for people, and it is about yourself. Who is Harpreet Singh?
Brilliant question to start with. Obviously, last week I saw Bali attempt to answer this question. Before I do actually get into that question, I just want to say that Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic. Fantastic name, great name for a podcast. I think, who's Harpreet Singh? I think he's a combination of all three.
Okay.
A nice little mix, swaying in and out, and I could do something that is deemed fantastic to one person but flawed to another.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most beautiful thing about sort of life itself. But who is Harpreet Singh? So I give you a very basic definition. I'm just a average 33-year-old Sikh male living in Wolverhampton, which is where we are today for those people who have tuned into this podcast. And before you ask, this is the weather all year round in Wolverhampton. So if you're thinking about your next vacation, do come down. Drop me a message. But
it's a shithole.
But yeah, so in terms of my claim for fame, I would say that in Wolverhampton there's a really nice takeout place called Veggie Lounge.
Okay.
And there's a sort of a dish on the menu that's named after me. Well, it's not on the menu, it's off the menu.
Okay.
But if you go into Veggie Lounge any day of the week, it doesn't matter who's working there, and you say, "Can I have the Happy Singh special?"
Okay.
They'll be like, "Yeah, safe, 5 minutes." And what is the Happy Singh special? So they do a sort of vegan battered fish and chunky chips.
Okay.
But I don't really feel the chunky chips too much, they're a bit too chunky. So I swap them with chili cheese fries,
That's good.
So nice because they got decent fries. All takeouts have these frozen fries and they're hit or miss. But with Veggie Lounge, I don't know where they get their frozen fries from. But their quality and the cheese is good, and the chili sauce isn't too chili.
Yeah.
So that's just a top tip. If you really want to get to know Harpreet Singh, come to Wolverhampton and order the Happy Singh special. I guess the reason why I'm actually here on this podcast, a lot of people probably tuning in are like, who is this guy? You either know me or you don't. I do have a bit of a social media presence. And so it's more private now than it used to be, but through my social media presence, people kind of got to know me, and they know that I talk about things such as, mental health, inclusion, sometimes politics, a lot of times religion and faith. And because of that, I guess I'm a little bit known by some people. If you followed me about 10 years ago on Facebook, I don't know if you remember, there used to be like a bio that you could manually type in.
Yeah.
People would put in like song lyrics or whatever, movie quotes, etc., etc. And I put something in 10 years ago, and it did last the test of time in the sense that I didn't change it until Facebook got rid of it. But I writ on there that I'm just another lost soul waiting to be reunited with his beloved.
Yeah.
And so on a deeper level, if you ask me who is Harpreet Singh, I would say I'm no different to you in the sense that, we're all souls looking to go home.
Yeah.
And that is who I am underneath. But on the surface level, I'm obviously a guy who wears sunglasses a lot in the garden, a guy who has a lot of mink blankets and things like that.
So you're still on your journey like the rest of us?
Well, yeah, we're still here, aren't we?
No, you can be. Oh, okay, deeper level.
We'll save that for later. Yeah. But I'm not going to sit here on a podcast and say, no, I've made it. I'm not Jim Carrey.
No, that's true. Okay. No. Well, obviously, you've told us you're born and bred here.
I wasn't. No. So,
that's even better. So tell me about your background. Tell me about your upbringing.
Childhood, I was born in Derby. So shout out to the Derby Mandem.
Oh, Charlie.
But I didn't get a chance to live there very long. I was there for about 8 or 9 months, and then we moved to Wolverhampton. So in terms of background, I think childhood is a great question to ask somebody for two reasons. One, it forms the foundations of who that person actually is, and two, I don't think we talk about our childhood enough. A lot of people out there, it's all a blur, but if you really start reminiscing,
you need to, because that's the foundation stage of who you are today, and it's very important to know.
Yeah.
I know I've just cut you off, but within the police context, we do debriefs on individuals. And the first thing we ask is, tell me about your childhood, tell me about your background, tell me about your schooling. And from there we can then interject and realise this is the point you got into criminality, this is the point that we as society, or we as all these establishments failed. And then you can see where they're going. With us, what we're looking for is what point in your childhood did the light bulb turn on and make you who you are.
Brilliant. I'm glad you clarified that, so I don't criminalise myself here. But yeah, so in terms of childhood, like a background, so it obviously starts with your parents. So my mum, born in India, she had 6 sisters, all daughters in that household. But my nana was like a proper sound guy. He would say that I've got like 7 stars here, sitare, right?
Like no guys.
Yeah,
so he said, isn't it?
Pretty much. Yeah, I don't know if my nana was the same person, but yeah. So she's from that background, and then my dad was born here, albeit his parents were born in India and they migrated here. So my daya was born in India and then they migrated here. And on his side of the family, I think he's got about 3 or 4 brothers, about 3 or 4 sisters. So big families, right? Yeah. And then my mom, at the age of 15, 16, she got married to my dad here, but it was on the premise that let's just kind of get him married off. Yeah. Because he was a bit of a sort of troublesome child, and so that's the sort of environment in terms of parental environment that I was born in. And if I was to sort of describe my childhood and upbringing in 2 words, I would say it's a lot of love and a lot of pain. Yeah. And every time I think back about the past, I always think about the great times and the bad times. So the great times were, I was born in the time when there was still a bit of ekta within the Punjabi community. Yes. So I was born in 88, late 80s. I saw the beautiful 90s as well. And if there was a sort of a defining feature of sort of my family, and if not all the Punjabi community at the time, we had those long sofas that if you lift it up, there's got like a bit of storage underneath. Yeah. And then if you pull it, you can lie down on it. Yeah. And obviously when you lift it up, there's always going to be sort of chadra, there's going to be mink blankets like this, pillows and things like that. And we would always have a cabinet as well that was just full of sort of blankets and pillows. And a lot of people, if you don't know where I'm going with this, the reason for that is because people would stay over. Yes. People would come visit. There weren't many cars, and people had a lot more time on the weekends, so or their annual leave and holidays, and they would come over and just stay around for ages. Yeah. People living in the UK, people coming from abroad, and so I grew up in a household, a family environment where we would always have people staying over, and that was just fantastic. Being around so many different people. If I was to give an example of just how close we were as a sort of family. My dad would live in Derby, we'd live in Wolverhampton. Yep. Mum didn't have a car, and Dad wasn't really around. And my dad would come from Derby to here, A38, about an hour's drive, pick us up, take us back to Derby, and then we'll stay there for a few days, and then he'll drop us off and then go back home himself, right? And that's almost unheard of now. No, people just don't do these things. But the type of environment we were in, it was like, this is absolutely fine. We want you to come over. Yeah. Whereas now it's like you got to make an appointment. And don't overstay your.
If you overstay your welcome, you've put somebody out.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't overstay your welcome. And yeah. So from a childhood perspective, there was a lot of love, a lot of ekta in that sense. But then if I flip it in terms of the pain, so I was the youngest child. So I've got 3 older sisters. And I don't think it was really a family that was trying for a boy in that sense. I know people always assume that straight away.
They need a son or whatever.
Exactly, but they weren't like unhappy that they had a boy. They're like, I came out. They're like, wow, he's got genitals at an angle. Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden, this is going to make a lot of people happy. Truth be told, I don't think my parents actually wanted me, because by that point, my oldest sister's 10 years older. By that point, when they had the 3 daughters, I think they were like set. Look, our marriage isn't great. We're not going to have any more kids. But then, as God will have it, I kind of came into this world. Yeah. And then when I came into that world, into that environment, being the youngest, I was spoilt. And there's this sort of a poem written by Anis Mujgani, and he sort of dedicates the poem to a lot of people throughout. And he talks about these are for the kids who are told speak only when spoken to, and then are never spoken to. Yeah. And that line really resonates with me, because I felt like that was my childhood. I was told to just be quiet and only talk when I'm spoken to, but nobody would speak to me. Yeah. And as a result, I would talk to myself a lot. I'd have a lot of imaginary toys. Yeah. I'd have Action Man and teddy bears, wrestling, doing all sorts of playing around and being creative with that.
Hold on.
Yep.
Wrestling's not imaginary?
No, of course not.
Real. Okay,
of course not. Yeah,
that's all right.
Wrestling's not, but what I did with the teddy bears and Action Men.
I thought I was going to have to cancel this then.
Yeah, if there was a stage to cut it off, that would have been it. Sorry, can't do anymore. Yeah, but
so you basically, like every parent does, you're not to talk, but like you said, you had nobody to talk to.
I had nobody to talk to. Yeah, being one of the youngest, and some of the relatives that I did have that were my age that I could speak to on a level, and I say on a level, but kids talk about anything and everything. But when I was about 5, my parents got divorced.
Okay.
And that was huge for me because I had these siblings that were of my age. I had my school friends, but siblings, cousins, if you would. I always say cousin brother, cousin sister. And they, the teachers at school didn't understand what I meant by that. They go, they're either your cousin or your brother. I go, no, but they're my cousin brother.
Exactly, yeah.
Because it's a bit more of a closer relationship to us. And all of a sudden, I wasn't allowed to talk to these lot anymore because during a divorce, people pick sides for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I had some connection with that side of the family because my dad's older brother married my mum's older sister. Okay. So I've got a Daya and a Masi.
Yeah.
So there was still some connection with there, but it was a bit painful. I couldn't really speak to these lot. And then when I was 10, I think at that point is when I really started to realize, life isn't as great as it could be because my oldest sister actually passed away. And that was the one time when all the family kind of got together since the divorce.
Yeah.
And here's me thinking this is going to last forever, but as soon as the funeral ended, they all went out and didn't see him again. So that for me, that sort of aspect of childhood wasn't that great, but other aspects were fantastic. And I guess I was trying to sort of ignore, as a kid, as you try to do, shut out the sort of pain that's going on and just distract yourself. And so I had a great childhood from a social perspective because I was always outside playing, and this might be like groundbreaking to some kids watching now.
Yeah, it is today.
I left the house and I went out to play. I know kids can't do that anymore for some reason, but I would have a bike. I'd cycle around every time, come back for lunch, go back out, come back for dinner, and I would do that. And my summer holidays were spent really sort of playful like that.
And but there was no phone. You just went out like we used to, and then you get back going, where have you been? It's been like 10 hours.
Exactly, yeah. I remember one time Mum sent out a search party. I was probably about 10 or 11, and I actually went to my friend's house who's just up the road here.
Okay.
And I knew that they had a clock in the house, and I just said, could you tell me when it's 6? Because that's my time to come in. Yeah. And I must have longed it out a little bit till about 6:05 or something. And then when I went down the road, every neighbour's out looking for me. I go, what are you guys doing? And they go, we're looking for you. I go, I was just up the road. I know to tell the time. I would have come back for 6 anyway. But so that was my childhood. Nice little mix of love and pain.
So your childhood, after divorce, your sister's already 10 years older than you. I'm guessing a lot of the time was you and Mum. Was it you and Mum, or your sister still there as a kid? Yeah,
so in this house that we're obviously recording from, at some point, for the first few years, I think my dad tried to live here, but he was always in and out doing his own thing, right? And he wanted a different life, and so he wasn't here. And then when Mum officially got divorced, I never saw him ever again. And I'll be truth be told, I have very few memories of him. I have one memory of seeing him at the funeral, and I was making a comment about his hair because it was really spiky. Yeah. And I have another memory of when he picked me up from school once. Right, I must have been really young, about 3 or 4, right, nursery age. And our school's just literally up walking distance from here, right, my primary school that I went to. And every day, Mum would be there picking me up. She'd finish work a little bit early, pick me up, and then go back to work after. But all of a sudden, this guy's here, and he's like, "I'm here to pick you up." And I was really confused as a kid. And he's grabbed me by the hand, and he started walking. And there's 2 gates at Gulf Park Primary where I went to sort of school. The back gates, which is just right here by our house, and then the front gates, which is on the other side. And if you're there, you have to walk all the way around. So we would always come through the back gate. And he held my hand, and he's taking me to the front gate because this guy brought his car.
Okay,
yeah. And I'm just panicking. Right? I think that's probably the earliest signs of maybe a panic attack or severe anxiety. Because I barely knew this guy. 2, he's taking me somewhere else. And I know hearing about strangers picking up kids, vaguely I kind of understood it. So I let go of his hand and I legged it to the back gates. Yeah. Right, I didn't even look back once in it, and he's shouting my name. He's like, "Happy, come here." And I ran, and got through the back gates, kept on running, came to the house, sat on the front door, and I thought, what do I do now? I can't get in. I ain't got the keys. And then about 10 minutes later, his car comes up, and he comes out of the car. He's proper angry at me, innit? Like, why did you run away from me? Why did you do this? Took me inside, smacked me up a little bit, and then he said, "Go put on your pajamas." And I think at this point, I knew that this guy has no clue who I am, or what I do in this household. It's 3:30. Mans don't put their pajamas on till at least 7 or 8, and so that. I have very few memories of him, but I remember that one and that sort of scene of just running away because I had no relationship with this guy,
Yeah. So how it's difficult to talk about. How did that affect your childhood, or was it it didn't really matter because he wasn't there?
It did matter in the sense that all my friends had dads.
Yeah.
I think there was one kid whose dad passed away, and I kind of related to him on a level. But even still, he had a relationship with his dad when you know. And so like my mum would always say like, I need a dad, and I would say things like that, like, you ain't my dad, where's my dad, etc.
Yeah.
And in the household, the dynamics was actually very interesting, and I'm very grateful that to some extent that there wasn't any male figures there, purely because I was heavily influenced by women.
Yep.
In the sense that I would watch all the Bollywood films. You know, Shah Rukh Khan films, Salman Khan films. I was on it, and 90s was the decade. After that, went straight downhill.
Tanked after that.
Went straight downhill. I wouldn't recommend any film in the 2000s. But yeah, so like I was influenced like that. But then there's all sorts of dynamics going on, because my oldest sister and the one younger than that, they were getting to teenage years now.
Yeah.
Mum was always working, and they were obviously getting influenced by all sorts of
social issues.
Yeah.
Social
and they went to
systems,
a school that wasn't that great.
Yeah.
And so mum would constantly get problems, and it got to a point where, you know, they'd always bicker and fight, like physically fight between themselves, and I would just leg it into the other room upstairs somewhere and just kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
But then it got to a point one day, my oldest two sisters are packing the bags, and I'm like, where they're going? And mum's like, they're going to live with your dad. And I was like, who?
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know we had a kind of dad like in it. And then they kind of left. And looking back now, I can't speak for anyone, but my understanding from my perspective is that I think the dynamics got a bit too much for mum.
Yeah.
Because my older sisters were probably saying things like, oh, we want to live with dad. And then she's like, if you want to go, you go. And I remember one thing, actually, 2 days after they left, they came back and knocked on the door, and they cut their hair. Because they had long case at the time, and they cut their hair. One of them got a nose piercing. And my mum was like, look, if you're gone, you're gone. I don't want you coming back. And one time we were walking on Dudley Road, where the shops are here.
Yeah.
And I saw my older sister. You know, this is the one who passed away, probably about a couple of years before she passed away.
Wow.
And I waved at her. And mum was like, don't wave at her. You know, mum knew how to hold a grudge. She bless her now, obviously her heart softened, and she, before my older sister passed away, she got a rishta again. But, you know, at that moment in time, mum knew how to hold a grudge, and she was teaching me how to hold a grudge.
You're hurt, isn't it?
Yeah, she was hurt.
She's her mum.
Exactly, she was hurt. And yeah, so there's little aspects like that in terms of the dynamics of the house.
Yeah.
That, you know, I would say it's very much a broken home, and naturally you don't have to be a genius to know if it's a single mum looking after 4 kids.
Yeah, it's difficult.
Poverty as well, like not a lot of, like, all my friends had good clothes. I didn't have them. I didn't get decent trainers.
Yeah.
And by decent I mean branded trainers. I didn't get them till about at least year 9 or 10.
Yeah, I can totally understand.
You know, and all my shoes were like from the shoes
on,
like
shoe zones and Burtons, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there were so many types. Although I tried to block things out, there were some things I just couldn't avoid, like you know, the social pressures of people having dads and them taking them to football games, and I'm not having that.
Yeah.
I don't have that at all. And then they have a bit more money, they can wear decent clothes and trainers, and I don't have that. You know.
Yeah. And that sounds harsh. I will break that down, but the next question might hit into it. You've mentioned on your social media before, and you've talked about this on a podcast we'll talk about your history with alcoholism.
Yep.
When did that develop?
So, you know, you don't have to be a genius to know that this kid in this environment, this is your police investigation here, right, is going to go one of two ways, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I guess I'm lucky we moved away from Dar, because a lot of my cousins did get into alcohol, they started smoking, and then a lot of them got into sort of problems as well, like fights and whatnot, right? I was kind of away from that, because me growing up, there was no sort of backup. And what I mean by backup is, when you're at school, people didn't mess with you if you had an older brother.
Yeah, of course.
I didn't have one.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't have any relatives. I had no backup, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, I had to keep low, and I didn't get into too many fights, which was great. But the pain was still there of that childhood that I just kind of mentioned. So for me, I couldn't use fighting as an outlet, which a lot of my sort of peers used.
Yeah.
And so I started using alcohol as an outlet. And when it all started, I think I was about 15 years of age. And I remember when I was about 14, I went to stay at my dayas at Derby. And I was there for about a week and a bit. And I remember I was wearing a pajama when I went there. And by the time I was coming back, that pajama was jack up, like proper high up.
Yeah.
And I went from something like 5'6" to 6 foot in the space of that week.
Oh, yeah.
And so by 14 years of age, I was already 6 foot.
Yeah.
You know? And people knew how old I was, but then at social functions now, all of a sudden, I'm not at the kiddie table.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not in the kiddie room, right? I am now able to stand with the men who are having a session, potentially in the garden, at the front of the house, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was 15 years old when I had my first alcoholic drink, and it was a 60th birthday party. I remember it in West Brom. You know, the land of dreams, West Brom, right?
Shit on.
And one of my sort of mama like that, but he was only a couple of years older than me, and he was drinking. He goes, "You're poor, happy, you're drinking," and they got one of those sort of white plastic cups, standard. Poured this much whiskey into it, and then filled the rest up with Coke, and they're like, "Here you go, drink that." And then I drank it. I only had the one, and it didn't get me drunk, but it got me onto a level where I felt a little different than I was, right? And I'm thinking, yo, I'm drinking with the men now. This is amazing. And then mum came and we're going home. She's kind of drive home. By this point, she had a car. So we're driving home, and I'm just like looking out the window, looking at the lampposts go by, and thinking, these are like amazing lampposts. You know?
Okay.
Check out these lampposts. Look how bright they are, man. Do we have these in Wolverhampton? I've never seen lampposts before. And suddenly, my outlook on life started to be so much more better because I was ever so slightly tipsy, right? Ever so slightly. I would say buzzing. Yeah. For those who drink alcohol would know, you know, you get buzzing. And from then on, I decided, you know what, I like alcohol. I know that there was an issue with my dad being, addicted to alcohol to some extent, and he would become violent, but I don't feel violent. And so for me, I'm thinking, well, it can't be that bad. And then slowly but surely, at age 15, I started drinking more and more at social functions, again, just a little bit, and then trying to increase it. But I never got to the point where I was drunk where my mum would find out. Okay. But the problem where it really got sort of problematic was when I was 16 years of age, and you get that national insurance card come through. Yeah. And you're allowed to work at this point. A local sort of sweet centre on Dudley Road started hiring young boys to do catering. And catering is a simple gig, you know, you get chucked in the back of a van at like 6, 7 in the morning. Yeah. You go to a party, you give out some food, you clean up the barn there, and then you come back to the sort of sweet centre, unload the dishes, and go home. Cash in hand, and it was a good gig, to be fair. But if you work 12 hours, probably about 30 quid a day. Yeah, you can't fault that as a kid. Yeah, 16 years of age, you know, you're working 60, 70 quid a weekend, right? So a decent amount of money. But the reason it became problematic was because at every function, which was often Punjabi, what are you going to find? Alcohol, right? And so between ourselves, we sort of made it a game. How many bottles can we nick? Yeah. And I say nick in the sense that, is it stealing? Is it not? I don't know. We can have a philosophical debate about if it is stealing when it's free.
I think it was, no, if it's free, it's not an offence. Yeah. The offence, legislative, if anything is free, so you go to a counter, they're giving out something free, and it says you can take one for free, and you fill your pockets and take 20, there's no offence there.
Okay, sweet. So I can die in peace now.
You can,
fantastic.
There's no offence. There's no offence of theft.
I'm glad you clarified that.
So we're good then.
Yeah. So
I'll tell you all the loopholes. I'll get you through everything.
Yeah, we'll do another podcast about that.
Don't worry.
How to legally get away with stealing stuff. But yes, like some functions it was actually quite funny because then we'd have like really nice uncles like, you know, you want a shot? I'll pour you a shot. Like in it, not knowing that we just jacked like 20 bottles. You know, we've got it in the van already. But I remember one function. There was like an upstairs and a downstairs hall, and we did the one party and then another party. Yeah. And one of the parties was like a Liverpool fan, and they were singing "Never Walk Alone," and that was the opportune time, right? Yeah. As soon as that song went on, all the Liverpool fans were like hands in the air, looking at God or whatever. Bottles just taken, right? We'd nicked 45 bottles in that day. We're talking Bacardi, Chivas Regal, Smirnoff Red and the blue one, you know, some decent liquor here. And then one of my mates whose mum didn't mind him drinking, he would just stash at his house. And that was set because then we could have a session every time after catering, during the week, during the half term, the summer holidays, and then slowly but surely drinking became really, really problematic because I was drinking more than I should have. Yeah. You don't need to drink an awful lot to feel good, but I was drinking past that point because the more I drank, the more I felt that numbness was kind of going away. Yeah. And I had several circles of friends that would drink, so I'd have a session one day. Whilst they're all recovering hungover, I'd have another session and another, and it would go. And whiskey was one drink that I could drink in abundance, and I'm talking a 70cl bottle, I could deck it. It got to the point. And so I'm 17, 18 years age now. People are just starting to drink, and I'm already, you know, a veteran of drinking, right? And my body was like, you know, not pleased with that because at football I was absolutely terrible because I just felt like trash because I was always eating junk food and then I was, you know, drinking this alcohol. And there's another incident I remember actually. We would always have a session, and I was a happy drunk. You know, I would be really happy and friendly and just happy that people are here and they're happy. And then eventually we'd all get drunk to the point where we would start opening up about the issues that we'd have. And then we'll wake up the next morning forgetting what we just went through. But we'd all say that was a great session. So the great sessions were actually the ones where we had therapy, you know, social therapy with one another. But sometimes when we would have a session, I would get to a point where I'd just get up and run. Okay. You know, so it actually links back to the story I told earlier. I would just run and in any direction, and then somehow I'd end up home, and people would always be like, Happy, I don't know how you got home. I don't know how you're alive because you ran through busy roads, but you did that. And the first few times I did it, my friends tried to stop me. And after that, they're just like, it's a thing, you know, this guy's just going to get drunk and run away, which is good for them because then it's more alcohol left.
They got enough sharab for them, innit?
Exactly, yeah. So and that's when it started to become really problematic. And the sort of icing on the cake was when I was getting bottles of whiskey, drinking them at home alone.
Okay.
This was not a social function anymore. This was me sort of self-harming, if you will, substance abuse.
Trying to numb the pain, numb the issues and get away from everything that's going on.
Exactly, yeah.
What about mum? Did mum realise? I guess she would have realised, but was it?
Yeah, so when I was 16 to 18, I think once she figured out I was really drunk, because when I was drunk, I would slur my words.
Yeah.
And mum would ring, like, she's like, where are you? I'm like, mummy, मैं होनी आया, मैं 5 मिनटां च आया, mummy कोई ना तुसी फिकर ना. I would speak like that.
Yeah, exactly.
She clocked on, like, she clocked me at home and just like kind of slapped me up a little bit. Tried to discipline me, didn't really work. I'd still do the same thing. When I became 18, she realised, look, if this guy wants to drink, he can drink. But she wasn't happy when I got drunk.
Okay.
And there was like actually when I was 16 at my nephew's birthday party, which people never seem to forget. You know, the most embarrassing moments, right?
Yeah,
they will never forget them. And they always say I got so drunk I was just puking up everywhere, right? And my mum was embarrassed then because there were so many family members there. There was one occasion actually when it really hit me that I was actually hurting my mum here. And I came home drunk, passed out in bed. And again, mum went out with the search party. She liked to do this a lot. Going out with the search party, she's like, the car is here, but he's not here. Where could he be? And a couple of hours later, they opened my bedroom and they realised I was there. And I'm like, what? This is like the worst search party in the world. Like, first place you look is the bedroom. But it was the last one for them. And she was like shouting at me saying, I'm so embarrassed of you. Why were you even born, etc. To which I think I responded like, you know I was born, mum. It's your fault, you know. And I was really drunk that night. And when I went to bed, I just conked out. And then I had this dream that I just vomited constantly all over the floor.
Yeah.
And then when I woke up, I saw that there was a pile of clothes on the floor. And I thought that wasn't there when I went to sleep. So lifted it up, there's just vomit everywhere. We're talking everything I had, like peas and jol or whatever, all on the floor. And luckily I woke up before mum and I like picked it up and I was scrubbing the floor because I was so embarrassed.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So embarrassed. I didn't want mum to see it because then she'll be like, what have you become?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, so mum was not very happy with it, if I'm honest with you.
And at what point did you realise that it was an issue for you?
That point when I was drinking by myself, you know, and that point where I felt every time I was sober, I just felt like I was in pain, you know, like there was something here, there's some weight on my shoulder, weight in my mind, and it was only alcohol that could do it.
Yeah.
And every time I drank alcohol, I always said the same thing again, I'm really going to quit, and I tried to quit so many times. I think the longest I went was a good couple of months and I felt good, and then I just slipped straight back into it. And it was just everything around me, relationships with people, trauma from the childhood, you know, feeling displaced, not really knowing who I am, why I'm here. Yeah. And every time I felt that way, I would just resort to alcohol.
How long did that continue for?
So it started at age 15. I would say it became problematic age 16 until at least I was 20. So 4 years, you know, three and a bit, maybe 4 years.
Did it affect education and work and things like that?
Education, absolutely. So I was good prior to GCSEs. Yeah. So that was prior to the drinking age. In the terms of the SATs, we would call them SATs. Yeah. Smashing it all the time without even trying. I had an educational talent. Yeah. It came to GCSE point, I just didn't want to do anything. I didn't pay attention in class, and I'm scraping. This kid who's used to ace all sort of exams, scraping B's and C's now. Okay. Which is still sort of, you know, it's still decent because I'm passing exams without revising and paying attention. Yeah. But I got caught out in A levels when I'm started to get like F's and U's, you know. Yeah. I think one exam, mathematics, and this is ironic now because I got a degree in mathematics, but my first mock exam in A levels, I got 4%. Oh, yeah. 4%, and the teacher was like, "You sure you want to do maths?" You know?
I understand that because the jump from GCSEs to A levels is massive anyway. Yeah. And you just think, like you said, you're just like, I don't need to revise. I can get through this. Exactly. And you hit A levels, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Got caught out, and then obviously I was more busy having a session than I was revising. So education took a beating as well. In terms of work, it was just catering, and I was smart enough not to get drunk during work. Yeah. But it would seep into my other jobs that I did. So I remember one time, Raw Mail, I worked there for Christmas period, and we would have a session before. Okay. So I'm sorry if anyone didn't get any letters in that year, but it might have been my fault because I was drunk. You know, I was drunk while I was working. There was one time I was actually drunk in school. So when we did A levels economics, which was at a different school, it was right next to a shop. And a few of the lads were there. I'm like, let's just have a session.
So we went and we got some, what did we get? Something super. I can't remember what the actual cider was called.
Well, that cat's coming out.
Oh, Daddy. Sorry, cat's.
No, it's all right.
Cat's trying to jump out the window. Yeah.
We've got.
But yeah,
got potential escapee here.
But yeah. So I had a session during that before that class.
Yeah.
And I went into class, and my friends were like, "You just need to quiet down, right? The teacher's gonna clock on that you're drunk here."
Yeah.
And so that was one occasion when I was drunk in school as well. So definitely a problem for about 3-4 years.
So how did you go about resolving it?
In terms of stopping alcohol?
Yeah, because obviously you've had 4 years of this, where you've seen this personal issue develop, and you're getting to that point where you're upsetting mum, embarrassing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you felt about it yourself, because I know, and other people know, if you go through that stage, you might go, I don't give a shit anymore. You have that moment, or you obviously, I'm looking at you now, you're way away from that situation. But at what point did that sort of resolve or start to rectify itself and go, I don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah. So to some extent, I did get to the point where I stopped caring about other people's feelings, but never to the point where I left my mum.
Yeah.
And we still now, we live together.
Yeah.
A house share, I would say. But because my older siblings left, and I know how it ended up for them.
Yeah.
And how it hurt mum. So I never had planned to leave, but at the same time, I realised that me staying was really painful for her.
Yeah.
And so that did have some effect. I wouldn't say it was the reason I stopped drinking alcohol, but I was really glad when I did stop drinking alcohol, because I sorted out that relationship a little bit. You know, she started to become a little bit more proud of me. But I guess the moment it changed, it kind of leads into your next question, which is like, how did you get into Sikhi?
That's all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know whether it's going to lead into that question.
It's Sikhi all day long. CQs talk about it all the time. Sikhi saves lives.
Yeah.
100% saved mine. And if it wasn't for Sikhi, I don't think I ever would have stopped drinking. Okay. I don't think I would have been here. The state that I was in, mentally speaking, I didn't see a future. I didn't see me living past my 20s. But Maharaj Kirpa, Sikhi came into my life at the opportune time.
How? Now that's going to be your next question. Basically, how do you go from 20-year-olds, I'm doing catering, I'm doing a bit of studying. I don't know, did you have any sort of Sikhi background at the time? Did you have any sort of interest? Or how did you come full circle into Sikhi and change your life? Right?
Yeah, so it's one of those things. When we talk about Sikhi, I know a lot of people don't like the word religion, which I don't agree with. Personally, I like the word religion.
Yes, I agree.
But some people don't. Some people just say faith, right? And if you look at it from a faith angle, I always say that everyone needs someone or something to believe in.
Yes.
So someone could be you're doing something for your family, right? Your friends, or just generally society, or you got somebody you look up to and you don't want to disappoint them. That's just someone, your reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Or your something, and your something is effectively your belief system. It could be your faith, it could be your religion, could be something that you really want to achieve in life, right? And for me, I was really losing my someone or something, because there was nobody that I wanted to live for.
Yeah.
And there's something there. I just felt like, what is life? What's the point? And that's where I was. And then when I started getting introduced into Sikhi, so Sikhi wasn't an alien thing to me at the time, because on my dad's side, like my granddad is Amritdhari.
Okay.
On my mom's side, there's a few glimpses. I think we've got like a mama, Shankarsu mama. I don't know if you remember the post on Instagram.
Yeah, passed away.
He was a Gursikh, so there was definitely some Sikhi, but generally being from a sort of a lower caste, it's hit or miss sometimes with the Sikhi as well.
Yeah.
Because you can either have proper Khalsa Sikhi, or you can have sort of a bit of a mix Sikhi, or you can go the other way. You can be Hindu, some Muslimani as well, believe it or not, in my family. So there's definitely some aspect of faith, and I knew kind of what parts were and these type of things. I would go to Punjabi school, hated Punjabi school, absolutely hated it. Had some kind of liked Sikhi a little bit, but it was all a joke for me. When we were in the Guru Ghar, I remember, actually, it's bad me saying this, right? I probably go straight to hell for saying it.
No, but this is what builds you as you are. So.
Yeah. We were young, and me and a few friends were there, and then we had like one of my friends had a little cousin.
Yeah.
And they was trying to really get the Naujawan on stage to say something, right? And they asked him to go on stage. They go, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to say the Panj Pyari's name or something. So he's saying the Panj Pyari's name.
And then halfway through, he just went, oh, dirty, like, you know,
Yeah.
proper. And
Yeah.
that was the most funniest thing in my life at that moment in time. But it just shows you the level, how sort of detached I was from Sikhi, that I didn't feel that it was worthy of respect at the time.
Yeah.
But there were still Sikhi elements, because opposite our road is where the brother of Santa Baba Seva Singh Ji lives.
Acha, Harvinder Singh.
Rampur
Harvinder
Khede.
Singh.
Yeah, just
Acha,
there. So if you need any
Oh, I didn't know that.
any books or anything, just
Because I see him when at Sedgley Street and things like that, and obviously when Bob Seva Singh Ji come down, I've met him a couple of times.
yeah, that's
And actually,
it.
I saw him last time I saw him was at Rampur Khede. I met him there.
Yeah. So that's I'd say that's definitely the connection. And you know, Maharaj only puts Mahapurush on this world to correct you on your path, right?
Yeah.
The first time Baba Seva Singh Ji came to our house, I didn't really know who he was, and I didn't really understand anything of why he's here, what he's talking about, or is he worthy of respect. So for the first few years, you know, Baba Seva Singh Ji, you know, always asking me how I am, you know, Harpeet Singh, theek hai tusi, like, in it. And I would say this guy's a really nice guy, but I don't really know what he stands for, so therefore I'm not going to have any interest in him, and we're just going to do the
Yeah.
ritualistic thing. We'll give him some watermelon, put it on a thal, and then and that's it, right?
He's just a random uncle, isn't it?
Exactly,
You
yeah.
treat him no different to
But-
anybody else. You treat her as a relative.
Yeah, very, very random. But when they would come over, his mum would come over. So Sant Baba Seva Singh Ji's mum. So if anyone's
Okay.
actually read the book Sikh here,
Yeah.
they talk about his mum as well. She was like one of the first to see Baba Harnam Singh Ji and realise this is a Mahapurush and wanting to do seva.
Yeah.
And so she's got obviously a lot of gamai in terms of that, you know, being a Sanghi of Mahapurush and doing Simran and seva. And she would always like be doing this on the
Wow.
fingers.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, if you can't find a and I remember this because
they count the number of jobs they do, innit?
exactly she didn't have a pinky.
Yeah.
And that's why I remember why she did this, because she would say, you could do more than me because you got a full pinky, right?
Yeah.
And she would always come over and she's like, you know, Harpeet Singh is a really good boy. And at this point I wasn't.
Yeah.
I really wasn't a good boy. And she'd always say, he's going to be a Singh, he's going to be a Singh. And so that was the influence, and I would shrug it off. But then when I started to get older and play football, the family there, the Gursikh family, would be like, you know, come play with us.
Yeah.
And so when you're playing football with people, you obviously drive to and from the football pitch.
Yeah.
And they would always talk about Sikhi, right? Because it was casual for them. And I'd just sit there like a munna, like, you know, okay, I'm not part of this conversation.
Yeah.
And then they would involve me in the conversation.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my, you know, avenue getting into this sort of Sangat of Gursikhs. And it was through football, and it was through Baba Seva Singh Ji coming, and through my neighbours being Gursikhs, right?
Yeah.
Because prior to that, they didn't really speak to us an awful lot.
Okay.
Like, they spoke to mum, but they didn't speak to me. But it was when Baba Seva Singh Ji started to come down our house for langar, that's when I started to get more sort of, you know, I know who these guys are, let's play football with them, etc. And little things I remember that they would say, like, you know, like, nobody wants to be a Gursikh anymore, everybody just wants to wear the kara.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my hand, there's a kara here,
Yeah.
right? I was so far gone, I would wear khanda hoodies that
Yeah.
they would give out, and I'd have a session in them. That's how bad I was, right? Obviously I don't do that anymore, but at the time I just didn't think it was a big deal,
Yeah.
because it was a hoodie, and I didn't see the link between the two. But then slowly I started to learn, and there was this one program that would happen at Sedgley Street Godra every Wednesday, and it's called Saint Soldiers Youth Forum.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they ran for a good couple of years. And for me, I'm at rock bottom. You know, I've got an intellectual mind that I can't seem to use. I've got an overactive mind that I can't seem to quieten down. What's the worst that can happen, right? So I started going to these Saint Soldier Youth Forums, and the topics were like amazing. You know, during February, they would talk about the game of love,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
And then that Bhakti about Guru Nanak Dev Ji talks about walking on, you know, with your head in your hand. And Yeah. Yeah, so those type of Bhakti I will start coming out. So I started getting an insight into Gurbani, which I didn't have before. And then one thing I really loved about the people there is that they were really blunt in the sense of what Sikhi is. They wouldn't say, yeah, no, that's fine, you could do this and that. Like, you know, people like Dil Saf. They weren't Dil Saf by any means. And they would say, the first step of Sikhi is taking Amrit.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, as a munna who had no sort of desire to get into Sikhi, that was planted in my head. And then all of a sudden I started questioning my actions and what am I doing, you know.
Yeah.
And I started asking myself the right questions, you know, why are you here? What are you here to do? Why are bad things happening? You know, and the more I learned about Sikhi and Karam, the more intrigued I became with faith. And then I was moving more towards my something to believe in.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I didn't jump straight into Sikhi, it took me a while. But I did start researching all other religions and faiths.
Yeah.
And every single one, yeah, they had their great things in it. They had their flaws, as well as some. I would say the flaws are more in the humans that are actually practicing the faith.
Yeah.
But nothing really made my hairs on my arms stand up more than Sikhi.
Yeah.
So I would be at an Islamic talk and they'd talk about the Prophet Muhammad, and it's a great talk. That, you know, the great things that they say, they recite their Quran and whatnot.
Yeah.
I didn't feel anything, you know. Same with Christianity and the Bible, but and to some extent Buddhism as well. But when it came to the Sikhi, there's just something resonated so much more with me, and I started thinking, well, actually, Maharaj put me here on this earth in a Sikh family. I understand Punjabi. Heritage-wise, it's from Punjab, and the more I learnt about it, I just felt like this is for me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I kind of got into Sikhi in terms of taking Amrit. I think that's the point where my alcoholism stopped, right?
Okay.
But it took me a while to actually start keeping my case.
So how long? So
Yeah.
you were drinking alcohol until you were 22,
Yeah,
or about 20 years old.
20, yeah.
Did Sikhi start then, and how long did the Saint Soldiers and things like that progress?
It started before that, so about 18 years old when it started, I think.
Okay.
So the point I'm trying to make is it wasn't instant,
Yeah, of
right?
course, yeah.
So at 18 years old, I started playing football with these lot. I started to understand more about Sikhi. And because I was at university at that point, my mindset had changed, and I was trying to focus more on education.
Yeah.
And in high school, I hated history, but all of a sudden, I loved history.
Yeah.
I loved Sikh history, right? And so I was learning, and I was in the right circles, but I was in in a bit of a duality, right? Because at one side, I'm sessioning, and on the other side, I'm going Gurukar.
Yeah.
And I kind of didn't know which sort of Sangat was mine. You know, I kind of fit in at both because I was accepted there and accepted here.
Yeah.
But the more I kept going there in terms of Sikhi, the less I started going there,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And so it was more of a transitional sway from here to there.
Yeah.
And I tried to get my sessioning buddies to come with me, and I was successful during Nagar Kirtans, but any other time at St. Soldiers Youth Forums, very rarely would they come. So slowly Maharaj was almost pulling me. And you know how we talked about running away?
Yeah.
I think this was the first time I felt like I wasn't running away.
You're running towards.
I was running towards,
Yeah.
you know, running towards Maharaj. Maharaj is pulling me in. And so, 18 years of age is when I started to understand a bit more.
Yeah.
I remember when I was 19 years of age, Vaisakhi came and went, and there was other people that were Murne who had come into the same Sangat, and they kept their case into Kamrit. And I remember that year in 2008, I decided to keep my case.
Okay.
And when I kept my case, I decided I don't want to drink alcohol anymore.
Yeah.
And I kind of went cold turkey with alcohol and meat. I think alcohol, I can't really remember when my last drink was. I remember my last meal with meat in it. It was a KFC Wicked Zinger meal.
Yeah.
And I only remember it because I kept the box. I kept the box in my bedroom for about 6-7 months, thinking this is iconic, you know, it's part of my history. After a while, it was just attracting ants. I kind of had to get rid of it.
Yeah, but it was a pivotal moment though, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, and you addressed that straight by keeping that.
Yeah. So I started keeping my case in April. And up until that point, actually, it was funny because Baba Seva Singh Ji's mom, who we would lovingly call BG,
Yeah.
she'd always be like, he's going to keep his case, he's going to keep his case. I think she clocked me at one point when I hadn't had a trim.
Yeah.
And so she thought I was keeping my case, innit? And when she's like, you're keeping your case, I was just hanji, innit? Got my hair cut the weekend after, and then when I saw her from a distance, I kind of hid. I was like, I don't want BG to get mad at me because I'm not ready to keep my case yet. But when I did eventually keep my case, I started wearing a podcast, she was so happy, so over the moon, constantly like, you know, giving me a hug and telling me Sakhiyan, Baba Hanam Singh Ji, etc.
Right.
And that was great. And it was in 2008 April I kept my case, March, April, and it was November that I took Amrit.
Okay.
So I was only a couple of months into keeping my case, and when I took Amrit, I was such a novice. I didn't know how to put kasher on.
Yeah.
Didn't really know what Nitrim actually was fully.
Yeah.
You know, so when I took Amrit, I took it not in the sense that, oh, I am now ready to become an Amritdari and live a good Sikh life, whatever. That I know a lot of people wait for that, and I have conversations with people who say they want to get to a certain point before taking Amrit. But my argument is, scrap that. You don't know how long that's going to take.
Well,
you know.
Yeah. Well, we've done a number of these podcasts, and the story that comes up is Jagaraj Singh's.
Yeah. So that's one example, isn't it? So for me, it was like, Amrit is the first step. Take Amrit.
Yeah.
If you know deep down inside this is the right thing to do, take it. If you waver, you waver. You know, Maharaj is always forgiving. But take Amrit. Try to live life as a Gursikh and see where it goes. And Maharaj Kirpa, here I am. 14 years later.
Yeah.
Still on the Khalsa Sikhi path. You know.
Yeah. So talking about, obviously you're coming into Sikhi, you know, with Baba Seva Singh and things like that. St. Soldiers Youth Forum, who was doing the talks there?
It was a mix of people. I can't remember. So Baba Seva Singh Ji's nephew, Maharaj Singh, would do a few talks. Sukhi Baba would come down to do a few talks. I think that's when he really got into his comedian type talks. And then it's actually quite funny because he would sway between being a comic, and you'd know because the star would be smaller, but if he's doing a talk and it's comical, he'll just do that. If he's doing the Sikhi talk, he'd wear like that big dumala then, right? Yeah. And he did a Kirtan Diwan, right? And so he did this, you know, Sangi Shabbats, and about 30-40 minutes later, there weren't that many people there and we weren't singing along. And he said, I don't know whether it was a joke or if he was serious, but he said, normally when I do Kirtan like this, you know, I always feel Maharaj through the Sangat, you know, there's so much energy, whatever. Yeah. I'm not feeling it here. Okay. And he just said it. He goes, I'm not feeling it here. And I was thinking either he's joking or he's serious, but I can't tell. But he's got his dumalla on, so I think he's serious about this. And I was like, it's a cold day, you know. We're just here to listen and absorb. But he didn't feel that vibe. But Sukhi Baba was one as well. Kuljit Singh, I think, came down in the later years would come down, but a lot of it was local. So the Midlands lot. And I can't remember everyone's name because at that point I didn't make a relation with them.
I was about to say, you don't have that interest with them. You're there to listen to them.
Exactly.
But not actually have a relationship with them.
Yeah. There was one talk called Once We Were Kings.
Okay, yeah.
That was a good talk. You know, talking about Maharaj and Jeet Singh's time, Hari Singh Naloa, all these type of things. And I think those type of, even now just saying it, I'm getting tingles, but because I remember the feeling. Yeah. You know, that when I learnt about these things, it was like, wow, we can be kings. We were sovereigns, yeah. You know, just last week I was passed out in a park, and now you're telling me I can be a king. Yeah. You know, and so little talks like that were what made a huge difference.
No, that's wicked. I'm going to carry this on to the next question. Is on. You've mentioned Sikh camps. I've seen obviously you go to boss camps and things like that. I'm speaking about Sikh camps. You speak about Sikh camps a lot. How did they shape you as a person? And when did you start going to them?
2010.
Okay, so you took your own within 2008.
Yeah, and so the question you should be asking is, why did it take you 2 years? And I think that's important to dive into, because when I took Amrit, I thought, do your thing, Nitnem, occasionally go to Guru Kar, and then that'll be it. And then when people were like, come to Sikhi camp, at that point, even though I had taken Amrit and I had very much sort of enrolled onto this path of Sikhi, I still felt like, you know, are you guys drawing me into a cult? You know, is it something that it's not? And no matter how many years, you know, people would say to me, to about 2-3 years, I think people were saying, you know, it's good, you got to come to it. I'd never went. 2010, one of my friends like, look, I'm going, just come with me, like, in it. And if you don't like it, you don't like it.
Which camp? Which camp was it?
Boss Sikhi camp, 2010. Boss. Yeah, so S2I wasn't around that year. Yeah. Never been to Khalsa. In the space, since 2010, I've been to 15 camps. Okay. Most of them Boss, some of them S2I. Yeah. And one of them was Basics of Sikhi as well. Okay. And for me, when I went to my first camp 2010, it was such a great year. Okay. And even the Katha now, if you listen to it, the Kirtan that you listen to it was amazing. Kuljit Singh was there, did some fantastic Katha. I do love Kuljit Singh, and I've got to give him a shout out. One thing I always love about Kuljit Singh Katha, then probably kind of the same now, is that the Bairag that he comes in.
Yeah, of course.
And I always kind of make a joke. I don't even know I've told him this joke, so you might hear this on the podcast, but I loved the way that he would sway from being calm, serious, emotional, calm. And I would say if Kuljit Singh ordered a sort of food from a menu, you know, he'd say, for starters, I would like golgappe. Yeah. And then for main, I would like paneer, you know, getting really emotional. I would like paneer.
And then the B-Ras kicks in.
And then for dessert, I want rasmalai.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and that was great because he was doing that from the heart. And when somebody does Katha from the heart, you know, their emotions will sway a little bit. And for me, that was the true moment that I realized, you know what, this Sikhi has such a deep connection. And 2010 camp, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, you lose the ras a little bit. And I think somebody talked about when you're at camps, it's kind of like having mendi on your hands after a wedding, and it fades off, you know. And they give warnings to campers sometimes about the camp blues and whatnot. The ras I felt from 2010 camp is still with me today, 12 years later. Oh, yes, I had blues, but just thinking about it, just taking my mindset, going back there, and what it was like in that Daman, what it was like Amrit Villa time, you know, that is the thing that's keeping me rooted, in the sense that I can't sway away from Sikhi because something's there. I felt something, you know. And as the years progressed, there were some camps where I felt really misplaced, because 2010 was good because I got to do a bit of group leading seva with Sukhi Baba, and we had some real fun doing that. The next year, they decided to scrap me as a group leader, and I was just a camper, and I was going through the motions anyway. Uni had just finished, didn't know what I was doing, couldn't find a job. House wasn't that great anyway. I was bickering with my mum about something, and that year I felt misplaced, but I still felt like I have a home in Maharaj, and I was in the bar more often than not. And then every year since, I've been able to do seva,
And by doing seva, you can really work on yourself. And you interact with people a lot more than you would if you're just a camper.
Of course.
And so group leading, I think, was my kind of calling at the time, because then I could have these conversations with the next generation, learn from them, and it would encourage me to learn more about Sikhi, Gurbani, so that I could share with others as well.
Yeah.
And as the years went on, the camps for me were absolutely, the things that kept me rooted. Every year I would look forward to camps. I would use my annual leave for camps only.
Yeah.
There were kids camps as well in Warsaw Plek that I would do a bit of seva as well. But I think the adult camps were the best. And, if anyone's listening in, I know during the pandemic, camps kind of took a hit.
Yeah, of course.
They tried with virtual, but it's not quite the same. Yeah, they're back now. And, if you're coming into Sikhi, or if you're into Sikhi and you've never been to a camp before, it's our sport for choice. We've got S2I, which do camps here, and they do yatra as well. You got Boss Camp. I don't think it's going to start up again this year. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Basics to Sikhi are doing camps. Khalsa Camp are doing camps. There's so many camps. There's some abroad in Canada. Just go to a camp, because sometimes Sikhi is one of those religions or faiths that you practice within the world, right? And we're not prescribed to go to the jungles and just meditate. However, having said that, there's nothing wrong with scrapping everything just for a short period, going to a camp and just practicing Sikhi. What is actually Sikhi? Waking up, Amrit Vela, Nitnem, Kirtan, listening about your itihas, doing Sangat, and just being surrounded by Gursikhs.
Yeah.
And that week will give you such a buzz. It will keep you grounded, especially if you're wavering, if you're lost like I was. That's what camps are there for.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. They're there to energize your batteries.
Yeah.
Massively. I find that with just the association with sadhus. You're just like, I've not had it for a couple of years properly. But when they're here for about months and months, you're buzzing. And then you come to that point where you're like, they're going to be here in 2 months, it's taking ages.
Yeah.
But it's that sort of thing. And the association with Gursikhs is massive. We've all been to those camps where initially it's daunting. You're like, I've got a week away from home, I'm not sure how it's going to go. I was 14 when I went to my first camp. I went to the AKJ camp in Bangor, in Wales, when I was 94. And but it was amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
You never forget it as well. I
never forget it. It was the first time, because we don't come from an AKJ background, the family has never come from that background. Saw the camp, said I want to go, and you're there at Ensway until about 2 in the morning, whatever, knowing that you got to get up in a couple of hours to do your nitnem and whatever. The talks were amazing. It was the first time you can actually sit with a load of Gursikhs of your own age and go, what's this? I didn't know about this. What's this? And you realise you're in a microcosm in your own cities, and you think you know quite a lot. And then you meet someone and it just blows your mind. You're like, I didn't know about that. And then they go, oh, have you read this in the Dasam Granth? What's that? Have you read this in the, in the Savigny of by Gurdasi? What's that? And you just, as a 14-year-old, my mind was just blown. So
Harman Singh mentions that actually. He goes, when he first met Jugraj Singh, so Harman Singh has been to India, to the Dere, right, Taksals and whatnot, and he was ready to sort of school Jugraj Singh, and then Jugraj Singh, with a lot of nimrata, he put out a book of his notes about Vedant, and he goes, oh Singh, I don't know if you read this or not, but this might be good. And so for Harman Singh, that was a kind of a spiritual slap in the face, because he went in with his ego, and Jugraj Singh went in with humility. And when you're sharing Gyan, it's all about sort of humility. And if it wasn't for camps, I guess some of the vicharan that I do now, I would never come out, because you can only do so much within your own mind. You need to bounce ideas off with people. But one of the sort of things I always talk about with campers, like, just give you a snippet of how I group lead. They give you a group leader pack, and I chuck that in the bin. I'm like, I'm not using this pack, you don't prescribe what I can and cannot talk about. We are going to go with the energy. So with my groups every year, we always try to do something different, sit out in the sun, walk on the grass, try to do a team building, a bonding exercise, using things I learned in the workplace into sort of how I sort of lead the group, making sure that their questions are being asked correctly, because sometimes you can give the correct answer in the wrong way,
yes, of course,
and push people away, and you got to really be sort of get rid of judgmental. And it's not easy on first impressions, because I was joking to Bali, I've got what people would call a lazy ass face.
Okay.
It's just very lazy. People look at me, and I remember one time.
Is that like the resting bitch face that we call?
Yeah, but I don't want to use the word bitch. But yeah, so one baby came up to me, right? I never met her in my entire life, and she goes, "Bud, you look really upset.
Yeah.
Or sleepy. Are you okay?" I was like, nice to meet you too, Benj. You know, where are you from then? You know, it's one of those, and the people always think that because of my face, it's just my face. Like, I really wanted to get a card and a t-shirt made saying it's just my face. But Bali didn't let me do that. So first impressions not great, second impressions are a bit better. But yeah, coming back to the point I was making, I always, at some point, I always like sit down and I say to the group, I go, let's have an open conversation, okay? Sikhi is great, but our history is painful.
Yeah.
What do you think is the saddest time in Sikh history, right? And ask that question, and maybe you could perhaps give your opinion. From your opinion, what do you think the saddest moment in Sikh history is?
There's lots of points. I don't really want to pick one.
Yeah.
It's not a point for me to spill my beans and get biragi over something. I could talk about it, but...
Yeah. But there's loads, right? Yeah. And a lot of people would say, okay, Jar Sahibzadeh, Panjਵੇਂ Paatshah, Shahidi, Nawe Paatshah, Shahidi, etc., all the Holocaust that we kind of went through. And I said, look, all of these are very good answers, you know, very, very emotional, very, very upsetting when we talk about these things. But I think, and this is my opinion, I might be wrong, I think the saddest moment in a Sikh history is when Sri Guru Har Krishna Sahib Ji left their sareer and said, Baba Bakala. Yeah. Up that point, up until Guru Ladore, was the saddest moment in Sikh history.
We got 22.
Yeah, when they had 22.
Yeah.
And why was it the saddest moment? Because there's no other point in history where Sikhs didn't know who their Guru was. You know? If you think about it, there's no other moment where we did not know who our Guru was, right? And at every single point, either Maharaj is in their sort of physical form or they're in Gurbani form, right? But we know who our Guru is. But that moment, they didn't know who the Guru was. And so the point I tried to make across to the campus at the time is, look, we're really blessed, innit? We didn't have to go through that period. We didn't even have to go through the transition, because Bhai Gurdas Ji talks about it all the time when after Panjਵੇਂ Paatshah Shahidi, Sheme Paatshah changed everything.
They changed everything.
They changed everything. And people confused, and they had that dubda in their mind. Is that really the Guru? And the same with Guru Gobind Singh Ji. We didn't have to go through that. We just have their beautiful history of what they did while they were here. And then we have Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, and it couldn't be simpler. 10 jots in Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj, right? And so we're very, very blessed because we know who our Guru is, and never forget that you know who your Guru is. So if ever you struggle with your Sikhi, ever you struggle in life, go to your Guru, because your Guru, you know, Thakur Hamara Sad Bolanta, right? Maharaj always speaks to you, and so your Guru is always there. And so it's little anecdotes like that I've developed over the years, and they would never have come to me if I didn't have those various conversations with various different people.
Yeah. With regards to the camps, obviously you talked about the pivotal moment being 2010 with Gurjeet Singh's talks and things like that. Have there been other defining moments at camps? I know you said you've been a group leader, but not as a leader, as a student, somebody who's gone there. Are there certain talks or certain things that have happened that have just gone, that's it, that makes sense, that's clicked, that's something I'll never forget?
So by Sukraj Singh. So when I went to S2I camp, actually he was there for one of the boss camps before they split up, but it was a lecture room upstairs in the Wales campus. People who've been there will know. All wooden. And he did a talk about Sikhi, and he broke it down in such a way. And the reason I connect with Sukraj Singh, it's not the accent. Anything but the accent, right? Sorry to the Yorkshire people, but it's a bit hard sometimes listening to you. But with Sukraj Singh, the way he breaks down Sikhi is so logical, but it still has a connection. So it's very interesting. Like when you're doing Prachar, there's very different ways you can do it. You can get emotional and sway back and forwards, or you can have a very logical structure and go, you know, this and that. Like you're almost hitting these points on a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
But he has this way of doing both, and because he's done Sangat Mahapurush as well, he has a lived experience. And so he did one talk about Sikhi and the essence of it, and then he loves to break down, you know, what's the soul and the various different things of the soul and how your karams are different and the arrows analogy, etc. And I think that point was really good, because not only did he break down everything from a theological perspective, which was useful for me then, not so much for me now, because I try not to delve into that because I'm more about the lived experience now. But at the time, it settled the mind. And no talk can settle the mind as much as Sukraj Singh. And I made the notes. I still got the notes from that talk. And what I loved about that was afterwards, I said, Paji, you mind having a talk? He goes, yeah, let's go for a walk and have a talk. And afterwards, people are like, why are you talking to Sukraj Singh? I'm like, well, has he got something? You know, does he have the pre-COVID? But they're like, yeah, but you can't talk to him, you can't approach him. I said, who? Says who, right? And I always have this naivety in Sikhi, in work, you know, no matter how senior somebody is. I just, you know, see them as another human being. Let's just go have a chat. And
at that point, Sukraj Singh everyone would think that he was untouchable and approachable. But I would have the best conversations with him, and he would always say, if anybody wants to have a conversation, have it. And then over the years, that sort of stigma really sort of eased out, and more people were speaking to Sukraj Singh, and he supported so many people. But I think he was one of the pivotal moments. But I think for me, as not a group leader, not as a Sevardar, just being part of the Sangat, I think the biggest moments that really got, grounded me as a Gursikh and made that connection with Maharaj was during Sukhasan and Prakash in the morning. So the way when they bring Maharaj from Sachkhand to the Singhasan, that moment when they're just singing Maharaj's Vidyayi, I think that moment, if I could snapshot anything and just repeat it for the rest of my life, that would be it. Especially in the evening where they're like Visrnahi Datar, Apna Naam Deho, Gun Gava Din Raat Nanak Chao Eho, just singing that, and that moment, it's just everything just makes more sense. And when you're doing Peridar Seva as well, it's dark, you're cold, you've got this massive city so you don't really know how to use but you know that Maharaj is here as well, and you're not doing Peridar of anyone.
No, exactly. They're giving you the duty.
Exactly.
They're bestowing you an opportunity on you.
Yeah.
It's not you the other way.
Exactly. Maharaj is doing kirpa on you, and you're not doing any Peridar whatsoever. The Maharaj just giving you this opportunity to be a Guru Sikh, And so it's little bits like that, and like I said, they stick with me. And there was one point as well where every camp I would get the blues, albeit the Ras would stick with me, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But I would still get the blues. And I think it was actually after I was married, 2015. After that, I think one of the Gursikhs sang Gur Mere Sang Sada Hai Nale.
Yeah.
And I was singing that, and then when Maharaj left, I didn't have that Bairag that I had for the previous 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Because every time Maharaj leaves, you do the Jagara, and then all of a sudden you just get down.
Yeah.
You feel like Maharaj is gone. And I was like, well, Guru Mere Sang Sada Hai Nale. And that really resonated with me. As soon as I went home, I went to Mata Tek at the Guru Car, and that bridged the gap, because for a few years I felt that camp was here, and Guru Car was here.
Yeah.
Not realizing it's still the same Guru.
Exactly.
And so as a student, it took me a while to learn that, and the point I'm trying to make is that sometimes it clicks straight away. Sometimes it takes ages, and it's so obvious, everyone's heard that Pankti, but to actually have that lived experience and realize that Maharaj is always with you, it can take a lot of time to.
The experience is the most important.
Yeah.
So philosophically, we can read everything, you can comprehend and understand it, but until you have that moment, it doesn't mean a lot.
Yeah.
That's how I find it. It doesn't mean a lot. I can go through the practical theory and all that sort of stuff. So some people that's brilliant because it just clicks, but the majority of people, they have to experience it.
Yeah.
It's like how if you explain to a child what love is, what heartbreak is and things like that, you don't know until you've experienced it. Once you've experienced it, you know the emotions, you know the feelings, you know what to avoid, you know what to do, and it's that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's the same once that Prem comes with Maharaj.
Exactly, and Sikhi is a very lived experience. If you want a religion where it's everything is theoretical, and it's just the case of believing one thing and then everything's sorted after you die, pick another religion.
Exactly.
Do not pick Sikhi, because Sikhi is a live religion that you work at every single day.
Exactly.
Like if you're trying to get in shape at a gym, you have to go there.
Yeah.
You have to physically do something, and it's the same with Sikhi as well. And one thing I love about Sikhi is they always talk about the concept of kamai, which is effectively your spiritual earnings. And that puts so much more sort of an onus on you to do something and not just wait for a handout. Yeah. There's so many people that Mahapurush that can bless you. I wouldn't say it's not possible, but do your kamai and then everything.
It says that, doesn't it? Why says it?
Exactly, yeah. And so sometimes people miss the point, and I can understand why. The world is very distracting in so many different ways. But I think, if the best advice always given at camp is, it's your life. Every second is an opportunity to do kamai. Yeah. Do as much kamai as you can. Yeah. And it will not only benefit you after life, but it will benefit you here. So coming back to the point you were talking about earlier, you can. One thing I love about Sikhi is that you can meet God now. If you went into a sort of a hall and people are selling religion, and the first question I would ask is, well, when can I meet God? And if anyone ever says, well, after you die, I will be like, you'll keep your religion, mate. I don't want that. I don't want that. I'm impatient. I want God now.
Well, Gurbani says. Gurbani says the same, doesn't it? Gurbani says that basically you cannot meet God after death.
Yeah.
So the aspect of this, just because they passed away. Actually, if you read Gurbani, it says you can meet God within this life. That's the only time you can meet Him.
Exactly, yeah.
And we read it, Bay Bravo, the Manak Dehoria, go with me, hit everybody. This is your only opportunity, not after you die.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, you have to earn it, work on it, and that's how it works. I'm going to move on to the next question, if that's all right. We've gone over the Sikh camps, but one thing that you do, which I found really interesting last time I spoke to you, is your work with diversity and things like that. So tell me about how you promote inclusion and well-being within the workplace.
So I'm very fortunate. In 2015,
Yeah.
I was working for one high street bank, didn't really enjoy my time there.
Yeah.
And then I got a job at another one. And I got married at the same time, so these two actually coincide together. So not only in my life aspect, I'm starting to see life from a completely different perspective. Remember, growing up with how many sisters have I forgot to count? 3 sisters, right? 3 sisters and a mum, surrounded by women. I was shielded from a lot of the problems that they went through, right?
Yeah.
I had absolutely no clue about menstruation, for example, right?
Yeah.
But obviously, when you're married, when you're with this person all the time, you start to learn about these things.
Yeah.
And so I'm understanding from her perspective, once we get married, what it's like being a woman, just generally, right? So that's opening my eyes. And then at work, everything's changing at the bank I still work for now, that I started in 2015, because inclusion became such a heart of everything that we do. Now, inclusion used to be one of those things that, Jalo, we'll have some samosa, we'll have some samosa vasaki, that's inclusion, yeah? But now inclusion is more to do with, well, okay, let's understand your background, let's understand the barriers that are in place, let's understand the biases that are in place, let's level the playing field. Not what the Tory government say, not that type of bugwas, like, but the proper leveling up, right, from a equality and equity perspective, right? And so I'm learning about all these things, and at the same time, well-being's at the heart of everything. So the bank I work for champions potential, and they want their customers and their colleagues to thrive, because they know that if the customers aren't doing well, we're all screwed. But if our colleagues aren't doing well, then the bank's going to collapse. So they really champion potential and make everyone thrive, and as part of their sort of values, inclusion and well-being are part of that. So as the years went on, the more and more I learned at work, I would try to bring back into our spaces, right? Family and social media was my sort of avenue to do that. And from an inclusion perspective, like, gender network, making sure that all the biases, the violence against women, for one, is one thing that I'm trying to speak up against more, because people don't understand how a joke can turn into actual violence, right? Black Lives Matter is the only hashtag I've ever had on my social media. So sorry for all the Guru Sikhs that are spreading hashtags, but I think Black Lives Matter fits with what my sort of political stances, because it's so encompassing. If you get Black Lives Matter right, everything falls into place.
QAnon people are going to hate you.
They followed me a long time ago. But yeah, so that, justice for black people, justice for women, LGBT, community. I'm part of the Rainbow Network now. I help with the comms. I'm just trying to say that, look, any marginalized community I will relate with more than anyone else, because I am from a marginalized community, but at the same time I will understand the privilege that I have of being a man, for example, and help women as well. So that's inclusion. And then from a well-being perspective, the bank understands that, okay, mental health comes first. If your mental health isn't in the right place, you're never really going to progress in your career. And so that really started to open up my mind from a mental health perspective. Again, I wish I knew now what I knew when I was younger.
Of course, I understand.
Because it would have saved a whole lot of years of heartache. But such as the kid, Maharaj, this is the way that I had to go. But now I'm utilising these things around well-being, mental health, physical, mental, social, emotional, financial, and trying to just be an advocate of all these type of things. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see that some of the hashtags are like male ally, diversity and inclusion, well-being, mental health. These are the things that I stand for now, because I know that if we get these things right, everyone will benefit. If we ignore them, we'll all continue to suffer.
Well, I know with regards to that, you've been on like a couple of talks with Sikh Mind and things like that, which are obviously focused upon that sort of thing within the Sikh community and the greater community as well. A really interesting topic that we spoke about last time when I was in Leicester was the focus on diversity within a workforce, but the actual thing that you need to consider is diversity of thought as well. Because I see it in my workplace where they'll go, right, there's a load of white people in here, let's bring one woman in here, bring a brown person in here, it's diverse. But their views are exactly the same as the people that they've replaced. The views are all more towards the right, they don't give a shit really, they say the right words to the community, but their thoughts are all the same, so it isn't diverse in any way. And it really hit me, because I never really thought about diversity of thought. So that was a really interesting point to me. So is this part of your daily routine? Do you talk about these things? Do you assess these things in like a sort of HR sort of way?
So I don't work in HR, but the great thing about the bank is that, you know, these values of inclusion and well-being is embedded in everything we do. So there's no such thing as just one person in HR that looks after inclusion, because then that would be a disaster. And a lot of companies still take that approach.
Yeah.
They just shift it onto that person and say, you do this, and then we can say we've done this.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. It has to be a sort of systematic change in the mindset where everybody takes it upon themselves to be responsible for inclusion.
Yeah.
And so the bank I work for has inclusion champions, of which I am one. There are well-being champions, of which I am one. There's thousands of us. They also have ethnicity allies, of which I am one. They have male allies, LGBT allies, you know, all these. And any chance I get, I sign up. And so from a bank-wide perspective, sometimes I do talks in different departments, because some departments might not have a brown person. And so when they're talking about inclusion, they're just talking about it between themselves, and they really need somebody else to come in and talk about it. So I can sometimes help with that. And it's the same with mental health. They don't know the perspective of how it differs when somebody's from a South Asian background. So I kind of help out with that. In my day job, it's a part of my goals. So my day job is a business manager. So I look after 250 staff who look after 9,000 customers that bring in millions, right?
Yeah.
And although I'm not customer facing, I know if I do my job right, everyone's going to succeed. And as part of my job, I make sure that inclusion, diversity, well-being is at the forefront of everything that we do.
Yeah.
And so the senior leaders that I work with, I work in a team of senior leaders. I always make sure that we look at it from various different angles. And I am the only up and down that sits in that sort of head office team.
Yep.
And so that's a great position, because I know that they want to do better and I want to help them do better. And at the same time, it helps me develop as well.
Yeah.
And anything I learn, I can implement in our community as well.
Yeah. So what do you say to those people who say it's a fad? All these things are fact. Say, okay, I am talking more towards you, right? Say you're the Republican Party in America is where they're on about Wade versus Roe, they're on about females' rights, they're on about all sorts of stuff. Doesn't really happen. Or you've got quite a diverse Tory party, Kwasi Kwarteng, Rishi Sunak, Priti Patel, got quite a lot of females in there, but the diversity thought is exactly the same.
Well, yeah, so the political party in the UK is absolutely, it's tokenism, it's model minority, isn't it? So it's the case of, you, like you said earlier.
They look at it and go, look how diverse we are.
Yeah, so they need to be challenged. I think if you live in an environment where feedback and challenge is widely accepted, in order for us to all progress and do better, it's going to succeed. If you have it at the point where you close the door because you're on that side, so therefore nothing you say is going to matter, it's never going to succeed. And I'll give you an example. There was a Singh that came over from America, and he was talking about climate change. And you know, the best way to have the conversation is, okay, you're a climate change denier, right? Because you've seen a graph that tells you climate change isn't real, and it doesn't bother you. Fine, right? The proposal from a sustainability point of view is, let's go green. Let's be less reliant on fossil fuels, get more green energy and
renewables, things
exactly,
like that.
Right? And so the question is, well, what's the worst that can happen if we did this? Yeah, it's almost like a Dr. Pepper advert. What's the worst that can happen? And sometimes you got to look at it from that perspective. What's the worst that can happen if we make it a level playing field for women? You know, and then that's when you really start to get the issues that they have. It's like, well, men might get we get this
emasculated.
A lot. No, well, men might get less opportunities or something, right? Or for example, if you're a white male. So I was doing a project, right, about being more ethnically diverse and gender balanced as well. And the bank set ourselves targets to be gender balanced, 50-50 by 2030. And then from an ethnicity point of view, because I represent London and South East, rather than the 12% average of the nation, we went for a 33% average, which is more representative of London and South East. Very ambitious, right? And I'm working on this project with a middle-aged white guy. Really nice guy, really into diversity and inclusion. But he said one thing to me, and he said, I realise I'm part of the problem, right? Because he's a white male. To which my response was, we've inherited the problem. Yeah, you need to get away from the I'm part of the problem. We've inherited the problem and we're all part of the solution, right? And by us doing what we're doing, it's not going to make like a target on your head. Like, you know, the fake target, what was that baby's name? Kate Hopkins. She put a target on her head and she goes, this is how I feel. And then somebody responded saying, this is a perfect analogy because that target's not real and you put it there yourself, you know? So a lot of people feel like, oh, we're being attacked, but in essence we're just making it a level playing field, and if anything it's better for you because
Whereas before, you might have gone through life strolling through all this privilege that you had. We would remove away the privilege. It doesn't make you worse off. It makes somebody else better off.
Yeah.
And as a result, makes you better off because now you will step your game up and be a better person.
Yeah.
So it's actually a win-win for everyone, especially with climate change.
Yeah.
You know, let's say carbon didn't exist, right? What's the worst that can happen of having electrically powered cars? If anything, they're better, they're faster, they're nicer, you know, and they don't clog up the place, making it hard to breathe, you know, these type of things. So there's always going to be people that don't see into these type of things, and they are the reason why society probably hasn't progressed as much as it should, right? But I think really, you know, the biggest challenge that you can get is say, well, what's the worst that can happen? You know, what are you afraid of? And starting the conversation from there.
Well, I think the issue there was you were talking to somebody from America.
Yeah.
And the majority of people I speak from, they're really closed-minded on those issues.
Yeah.
You just have to see what's going through their courts, what's going through, you know, their House of Representatives. You know, we can touch upon it, like gun control, Roe v. Wade. You can talk about the trans bill, the Don't Say Gay bill, the things that are going on in America. You're just like,
yeah.
What's the different about them and Russia? Because Russia does the same thing.
Mate, yeah, preach to the choir.
And then they hate the Russians.
Yeah. It's nonsensical. And if you step back and look at it, you see that this is all a bit weird. Yeah. And I remember I made you write down the Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I think
I've got it here. Wait, hold on.
You got it down, right?
Episode season 4, episode 17. Something superstar.
Superstar. Okay,
see?
Brilliant. So just for people tuning in. We were going to record this podcast last week, but we ran out of time. But so we're recording it now. But I told you about this episode. Okay, so I recommend it. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's on Disney Plus. Yeah. Season 4, episode 17, called Superstar. And in that episode, it's completely different to any other episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer because it's like almost everything's on his head. Okay. So the dork in there is now superstar. He's a movie actor and things like that. And you're watching it, thinking, what's going on? In that episode, a couple of episodes before, there's this one sort of monster type of creature that's neither human nor vampire. It's kind of in between. And he's the only person that could see that this is all just a sort of mirage, right? It's all fake.
Holographic universe.
Yeah, it's all fake. And it turns out that a witch had put a spell on everything, right? Okay. And I'll remember that episode because when I watched that episode, I didn't want to be like the dork that became a superstar. I wanted to be like that monster that could see through the lies. Yeah, you know? Okay. And I think the biggest issue that we have now on a social, political level is who's telling the truth and who's lying. Right? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And so you should never get to a point where you're backed into a corner that you're forced to believe this lie because you associate with a particular political view.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the Carl Sapante is always going to be Nyara as long as it doesn't associate with one particular thing.
Yeah.
You know, everyone can have their little truths. Everyone can have their little lies.
Yeah.
But you don't ever associate with this completely because you're always going to be misled.
Of course.
Do you know? And I think that's another thing that I try to get out there a bit more. You know, research more about politics, what people are saying, what people's views actually are. Try to sit back and then think of it from a lens. And there should be a yardstick in which you measure progress by. And my yardstick is actually Sikhi.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, how better are we all living? How close are we to get to the end goal, which is Maharaj, right? Yeah. And if we're getting distracted by all these worldly things, right, or nonsensical things like don't say gay bill,
exactly.
You know, then if you're more in tune with the don't say gay bill, but what's really happening is that you're pushing the don't say Vaheguru bill, because you're not going to do any Simran because you're thinking about that, right? You know, so it should always come down to Sikhi and things that can make generally the world a better place and a better relations with other people, specifically marginalised communities, and allow you to practice your Sikhi as well.
Yeah. Well, that's wicked. Coming on to obviously your social stuff. Right, a bit of wording here. I'm going to ask you this one first before I ask you the question I was going to ask you about mental health. But tell me why you find it important to share stories on civil rights and other issues on social media, which many of which people try not to pay any attention to.
It's a really, really good question because, again, people that do follow me on social media will know that I will post about a variety of different things, right? It can range from like a cat video to, rape cases, for example, just to show you how varied it can be. And the reason I speak about these things is because there's two ways you can go through life, right? There's the way that the people think the world is that you've got the oppressor and the oppressed, right? And a lot of people think that, well, actually, if I just keep my head down, close my eyes, I will never be oppressed and I can just coast through life. But the reality of it is that if you wake up, you realize it's not oppressor or an oppressed, it's an oppressive system that we're all partaking in, and we become the oppressor or the oppressed at any given moment. We fluctuate between the two. And so what I try to do is, again, coming back to the Buffy the Vampire Slayer, is just try to sit back and think, well, what's actually going on here?
Yeah.
You know, what's
the bigger picture?
What's the bigger picture, you know? And sometimes it means that you're having conversations about things that people aren't, right? So some of the things I share are things that are trending, you know, because as it stands, there's certain things are in the news that you're forced to speak about because everyone else is.
Yeah.
But then there's other things that people aren't aware of, you know, like come back to the history point. I hated history in high school. The best thing about history in high school was that they made us put wallpaper on our books. I don't know if they ever did that at your schools.
Wallpaper in your books?
Oh, mate, it was one of those where like, they were like, we're really going to decorate our books now. I think the teacher was trying to be...
How poor was Wolverhampton, man?
Down, yeah.
How bad were your books?
Yeah. Well, it was just normal exercise books, and she's like, we're going to make these stand out. And so she's like, put wallpaper on. One year, we only had my sister's purple lilac wallpaper, so I had to put that on it. But the next year I had dinosaur glow-in-the-dark wallpaper, so I put that on. But anyway, come back to the point of history is that there's certain aspects of history that if you actually talk about them, it helps paint a picture, it helps connect the dots.
Yeah.
So I think Steve Jobs says you can't connect the dots going forwards, only backwards. And so if we look backwards in our history and we start learning about that, we completely understand why the world is where it is and which direction it's kind of going in. And so from a civil rights point of view, I try to be a voice for the voiceless, you know. So yes, we...
CM Punk. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so like obviously there's so many things going on in Punjab with the Farmers Bill. I try to be vocal about that. But then you'll also hear me about black people's struggle going on in America, or the Yemenis people.
Or the Yemenis, or know, what's happening in Somalia.
Exactly.
I remember all these things on, not just that Square Q, you got the political stuff that's going on here, the welfare states. I remember all these sorts of things.
And I always say, like for example, the anti-vax one was a big one last couple of years, because people shy away. Not a lot of people buy into the anti-vax, right? I would say it is a growing number, purely because of the way in which it becomes sort of tribalism, cult type mentality. But not a lot of people, the majority of people do not buy into it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise you wouldn't have had 30 odd people getting the vaccine and being perfectly okay. But a lot of people will shy away from the conversation because they feel it's too much of a hot topic, too much of a sensitive topic. Yeah. And it might invite behaviors or conversations that you perhaps don't want. Right, which is a fair point, and I can see why people put their heads down and shy away from that. But at the same time, although you're shielding yourself from what you don't want, you're missing out on what you probably could have, which is a great conversation about scientific advances. Yeah, you know, a great conversation about inequity within the healthcare system. You know, a great conversation about where we're going with society, how we work together, how the political system isn't working for us, you know, and all these type of things. So if you just shut it all down, then you can't have these wonderful conversations that expand your mind and make you see the world differently. When you start seeing the world differently, you are in a position to change the world, right? But again, if you just put your head down, you're just going to continually be kind of like the sheep, you know, just follow the crowd and things like that.
You follow the crowd, but you don't deal with the noisy minority as well. Yeah. And they continue to grow and influence.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've seen it in history, far right. We're kind of where we are now is because we let the far right voice take hold, and, you know, like for example, Brexit. Yeah. People are like, I don't want to talk about Brexit. Because you didn't talk about Brexit, what happened? Yeah. Brexit, right? Exactly. But if we all actually spoke about it, if we all had the mindset of thinking, okay, we're going to look at this logically, we're going to look at the pros and the cons, we're going to see what's on offer here, what's the narrative on both sides. I think the vast majority of people, when they really moved away from the sort of rhetoric of just immigrants, basically, like the racist rhetoric that was out there, I think they'll see right through it and think, well, actually, we're never going to be in a position better than we are now. Yeah. So why would I vote for it? Why would I chop my own leg off, right? But people didn't see it that way. And it's because of the lack of conversation that the governments can actually control the population, because they know if they feed you a narrative and if it's emotive enough, you will not care whether it's true or false.
Yeah, and that's what happened. £350 million a week or whatever it was.
Exactly, yeah, we all got conned. And
the
even
day after the vote, 94 hours straight goes, actually, that's not the case.
And such is the way now that I think there's a famous quote saying it's easier to fool someone than convince them that they have been fooled, right? Yeah. So the trick is not to get fooled in the first place, right? And you're only going to do that if you have your guard up. Yeah. If you have that logical, rational sort of shield in which you digest information and you can actually critically analyze it. Yeah. And so that's one of the things I try to do through my social media. I look at it from various different angles, and I can appreciate other people's opinions, but what I can't appreciate is outright lies based on nothing, right? Yeah. Stardust just in the air, just make it up out of thin air and never back it up. Because people need to be held accountable for the things that they say and do.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And accountability goes out the window if you let people run riot with false stuff, you know?
Yeah. No, is there... there's always going to be those people who will say to you, you're only putting this up because you're woke, or you're this, or you're that. But I know for me it's a different thing. That's why whenever I see a decent Vice video that isn't even on, I send you a link, because I'm just like, especially with that one with the missing girls in Balochistan and people going missing in the political unrest. Yeah, for me, I find it very interesting, and it impacts on the work I do as well. So I'm thinking it might be similar to you, where you're getting all this external information. One, it helps with your diversity work and inclusion work, and secondly, it's just, I'm interested in this.
Yeah, 100%. I think the aspect I always look at it is, look, you arm yourself.
Yeah.
Because something will be taken away. And the narrative we heard in the pandemic is your freedom is being taken away. But how do they define the freedom? My ability to go to the cinema.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less if the cinema closed down. Or somebody said to me, you can't go cinema anymore. I'll be like, Jalo, that's a good thing from a Sikhi perspective. The only thing that you should worry about is your Sikhi.
Yeah.
And is that being taken away? And sometimes to some extent it is, because if your mindset is somewhere else and you're completely engrossed with something on a emotive level, you ain't going to dedicate any of your time to your Sikhi. So in essence, you might think that you're woke, if you will, but you're not, because your Sikhi is being squandered away, right? And Gurbani talks about stop squandering your life away. Yeah. In terms of the word woke, I think that's very interesting. Woke and cancel is obviously a very topical thing. Topics. And I would say that woke is never a title that you give yourself. Yeah. It's always a title somebody gives you. And it's interesting because, is it a bad thing to be woke?
Well, I was about to say, it's you look at certain individuals and they consider woke as a dirty term. They put it on you. You're just woke, you are. And you're just like, no, actually, what I'm trying to do is make sure that everybody can get a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Not that just the people who've entitled always get that opportunity. What about those at the back? And it's that sort of thing. And for me, being woke, if somebody goes, oh, you're just woke. Why? Because I want that individual over there to have the same opportunity. Like I said on Question Time this week, they said, why is it that we can all house a Ukrainian family? Why can't I do that for somebody from Yemen or Algeria or Syria or one of these people? Where was the opportunity for there? And Dom Jolly came on straight away and said, yeah, there's only one reason for that, and I think you can all see what the reason is. Yeah, and it's that sort of thing. But that was, somebody said to me, yeah, but that's really woke. No, it's not woke. Yeah. It's leveling the playing field.
And that's what again, a lot of people do, is they use these sort of words or phrases to shut you down and shut down dialogue. And again, what are they so scared of? What are they so scared of? A fairer world where people are here? And all of these things will come back down to an irrational fear of other, i.e. somebody brown, somebody black's going to come here and they're going to do this and that. But all these stereotypes are not backed up by reality.
Yeah.
And I think with sort of Brexit, some of the towns that were high voted on Brexit, when they sort of did polls about it, they said, what's the biggest issue in terms of Brexit it's going to solve? And they said the migrant crisis, migrants coming here doing these things. But they were all from areas where there was hardly any diversity.
Migrants. There was no migrants.
But the areas that did have the migrants voted against Brexit because they saw the benefit of migrants coming in. But it's typical colonialism, isn't it? They colonize the whole world. And then they take all the wealth and they're like, yeah, you guys can't come here now. And so
you lot want to go everywhere else, you're going to get that back, aren't you?
Exactly, yeah. So that's the world we live in.
No, that's fine. I'm going to go back a step because I just want to pick that question in with the social media stuff. One of the questions I left out was, why do you feel it's important to openly talk about mental health, especially within the South Indian community?
I think the question in itself kind of gives you the answer. Yeah. It's like, we openly talk about so many things. The things that we don't openly talk about, we say, why is it important to openly talk about this? Right? It would be a weird question to ask if we already openly talked about things. Yeah. And the reason I talk about mental health, because we don't openly talk about mental health. And I don't know whether I haven't really nailed it down what's the reason, what's the pinpoint reason why. It's probably a variety of different factors, right?
It's a cultural taboo, isn't it?
Cultural taboo, not knowing how to have the dialogue, not knowing where the dialogue is going to take you. There's so much going on. But I generally am a very expressive person, because I remember somebody saying that you are the universe experiencing itself. And I figured, well, okay, if I am, then I would like to know how you're experiencing life, and I would like to share how I'm experiencing life. Yeah. And that's just generally how I kind of live and express and use my social media platforms. And when I was younger, when my mind wouldn't stop, writing down things would really help, and that eventually went into blogging, which is stopped now. Yeah. But I use my social media as almost like an online blog documentary type of thing. Yeah. And part of that is my mental health. So the more I learned about mental health, I thought, wow, this is amazing. I want to talk about this more and share. And I found actually the one one way to get people to open up is to share your own experiences. So there's no point us all getting together and I'm saying, okay, tell me about your mental health. It's never going to work. And I've been to a group therapy session where they were quite young, a little naive, everything was textbook, and they attempted to do that and it was just silence. People are not going to open up. They're not going to drop their guard unless they realize that this is an open, safe space.
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is to talk about your mental health experiences. So for me, everything I go through, the things that I learn, I share. Even right now on my LinkedIn, every month I'm given a mental health update.
Okay.
Because a couple of months ago, towards the end of 2021, I said to Bali, I said, look, I can't wait for this year to be over.
Yeah.
And she said, you said the same thing last year. And I thought, wow, I had 2 crappy years. And I didn't even know about it. That's 2 years of my life completely crappy. Why were they crappy?
Yeah.
My mental health wasn't good. Last year I ended up, was it last year? Yeah, last year I ended up taking a month and a half off work.
Yeah.
With
you needing time for yourself.
Exactly, a very depressive state, a lot of anxiety. I just needed that, and it was great for me having that time. But that was the first time I've ever taken time off to sort of support my career. Prior to that, I would always tell people that, you know, you can work through it. And I would always tell the anecdote of the time a couple of years, going back a few years at work. I just finished my shift, which was meant to finish at 8, finished at 8:30, had a customer on the line, not the easiest to speak to, so a little stressful. We were on the 3rd floor, I got in the lift, pressed ground floor, doors closed. I looked at my phone, I'm thinking, okay, 10 minutes to get to the tram to get home. Then I started daydreaming, thinking about all sorts of things, my career, what's going on, how am I feeling, or whatever. And all of a sudden, I kind of, 8:30 was when I got into the lift. And then all of a sudden, I looked up and I thought, what's going on? I'm still in the lift. And I looked at my watch, it was 10 to.
Okay,
so 20 minutes I was still in the lift. First, I thought, the lift has broken down.
Yeah.
Then I realised I got into the lift and I didn't press the ground floor.
You just stood there.
So the doors just shut and I just stood there. And I thought 20 minutes, you know, this is like a really... I'm not in a great place right now.
Yeah.
And Maharaja's Kripa, at that time, I was able to do things to get myself into a better place, having an open conversation with my line manager. And I managed to do that without taking any time off, without any therapy.
Yeah.
A couple of years later, you know, you'd think that story would be like, yeah, this guy's very proactive, but life doesn't always work that way.
Of course, yeah.
You know, and so at that point I had to take time off, and taking that time off is really good. So I try to document my life now every month, how I'm actually doing, just to be more vocal, to let other people know that, you know, it's okay to struggle. It's okay, these are the things I'm going through. If you're going through the same, let's connect, let's talk about them. But at the same time as well, for me as well, never to let it slip, because the moment we let mental health slip, we all struggle. Have you probably heard about the 3 storms analogy? So, well, the 3 types of people during a storm. So the first are like, the storm's far away.
Yeah.
They see it coming. They make preparations to make sure it does minimal damage.
Yeah.
Second type is the storm's here doing its thing, and they start preventing it from doing further damage. Right, tie up defenses, for example. But the third type of people are, the storm comes, you see it coming, comes, and then goes, and all of a sudden they're just left with the damage.
That's me.
Yeah.
That's me, I'll be honest.
Yeah, so the trick is to be the first person if you can. Ideally, even the second person is not bad, but the third person, the problem with that is from a mental health perspective. If that storm comes and goes, you don't know how much damage it's done.
Yeah,
and you might just be stressful a month or two, but that stress, that damage it's done, it might take years to get over, you know, or work through rather. And so the more we talk about mental health, the more we normalize it, the more people are likely to talk about it, do something about it and get help. But at the same time, I will add one thing with that as well. Just because somebody's gone through mental health struggles does not make them the ultimate advocate, champion for mental health. No. And I think as a community, especially the Sikh community, we need to move away from that person went through mental health struggles. They're okay now. Let's get them into a place where they can talk about it and help other people. It really doesn't work that way, you know.
No,
because
I've been through it. I was off with 3 months, 6 months. You know, I've done those sorts of things. I don't talk about it. I can't champion it. Because I can't tell you what I went through.
Yeah. So it's one of those things, and sometimes when you put people back into that position, they have to relive their own trauma, and they might not be fully recovered, and it's worse for them. Yeah. And so you mentioned I do some work with Seek Your Mind and Taraqi and Sikh forgiveness and whatnot. Yes, I do, but you'll never see me signed up to one and continually doing this work, because my priority is my mental health. So where I can, I help out. Like this year, for example, I had to just stand back and say, well, actually, sorry, it's a bit much at the moment. I've got a lot on at work, and I don't want to get back to the point where I get to the end of the year and it's another crappy year. Yeah. So sometimes I pull back, and I think, you know, that acceptance that, yes, people do go through things, they are able to speak about it, but at the same time they're not. Yeah. You know, just make it such a great environment where you can help, step aside, step back as well. And obviously you've been through a lot of things and whatnot, and if you lived in another world or another parallel universe where mental health wasn't a stigma,
you would have had countless people to speak to.
Of course.
You've had so many avenues to get help, and you would have taken it.
No, you have that mental health, and like you said, it's a stigma. So you turn to really few people, like, Kamalpreet Singh, his sister, his parents, my parents. You turn to a few people, but at the same time, it's a case of you got to keep quiet about it and that sort of thing. It's a really weird thing.
They say,
just
keep
it,
just don't tell out, innit?
Yeah, it's within our doors and it doesn't go out of our doors, sort of thing.
Yeah, and we need to move away from that.
Yeah.
I think slowly people are moving to shift, but I think the future generations need to learn how to speak about mental health more seriously. And one of the things you always hear is that, like, we never had these things when we were younger.
They just didn't speak about it.
Exactly, you did, but you didn't know how, or you just didn't speak about it, and people struggled. But now you can get the support that you need.
Yeah.
And like I said, the more proactive we can be about it, the better, the more normalised as well. Like, I'd have no issues going into work saying, oh, I slept funny, my back hurts.
Yeah.
I want to be in the same position where I go into work and I say, oh, I'm not having a great day and I don't feel very good,
Yeah.
And that being normalised, because the problem is when you say it in front of people that don't know how to deal with it, they're like, crap, what do I do?
Yeah.
Either it's awkward, I just get out of this situation, or I try to do something, but it might make it worse.
Yeah.
And so we got to get comfortable with having these conversations. Sometimes it's just a case of listening, just being there. Sometimes it's a case of actually, encouraging them to do something about it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the more we're there for one another, the better it is. And just let's break the stigma around mental health. And hopefully, through the way that I speak, like, I'm on social media. I think I've got something like 2,700 followers, right? Bally's got like 28,000 followers, right? I'm not bitter about it. We did have a race at one point, but I gave up on that because I think she's won that race, But I get more interactions on my Instagram than she does on hers, right? And the reason, in terms of messages, not necessarily likes, and the reason for that is because I'm very open and honest, and I'm seeing more and more people messaging me and just having a general conversation.
Yeah.
Again, not everyone feels this way because my persona, my perception of me might not be that great for some people, so they might feel like I can't talk about it.
Yeah.
But the people that do, they realise that, okay, this is just another guy who's happy to have a conversation about anything.
Yeah.
And people do reach out and open up, and then we have great conversations. And some people say, yeah, just you talking out has encouraged me to do this. And I'm like, well, that's great. And now you're doing this. Tell people you're doing this, and then you'll have a knock-on effect, and it's a domino effect.
Yeah.
We'll all help break the stigma. We'll all help encourage other people to get help.
Yeah. No, it's awesome, man. Right, sorry. Next question was, what advice would you give to the next generation? I know you just covered bits of it, but
yeah,
what would it be?
I guess
because
yes,
I've got 3 daughters, and the shit that they've gone through, they've gone through some bits, but. And I always say to them, you got to be open and honest. You got to talk. You got. I'm not somebody who stigmatises, and I'm not going to support them in any way. But what would be your advice to the next generation who are coming up and having to deal with these problems? Whether it's to do with alcoholism, whether it's to do with feeling, mentally vulnerable and alone, or anything like that. What is?
Yeah. So it's one of those where advice. Given the situation you're talking about, if we're talking about alcoholism, I can give very specific advice.
Yeah.
But if I'm giving generalistic advice, that might apply to more than one situation. I would say, really work on understanding your worth and your purpose.
Yeah.
And I used to do Sunday sermons on Instagram. I don't know if you remember them. Worth and purpose was one of them.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is your worth is, how do you value yourself?
Yeah.
Your body, like, because obviously I've been through the point where I didn't value myself at all. I didn't care for my body either, and I know a lot of people might be in a similar position, but
that's my life. That's why the chips and cheese are there every meal.
Yeah, but sometimes that is when there's a song by Ben Howard called Depth Over Distance.
Yeah.
I have no idea what he's talking about, right? But for me, when he says depth over distance, I'm talking about the internal journey is more important than the outward journey.
I thought it was a different song altogether.
But yeah, so like for me, finding my worth,
yeah,
and you get this a lot with religious people, because they always find some saviour who loves them, right? Because that's all it all comes down to.
For a
love.
Sense of belonging,
Yeah, it comes down to love, doesn't it? And people look for it in someone or something, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, figure out your worth. What are you actually worth? And from a Sikhi perspective, we are obviously that drop in the ocean.
Yeah.
The soul is no different to God. So, don't let anyone tell you anything different, right?
Yeah.
Every human being, regardless of caste, color, gender, you are worth something.
Yeah.
Worth something more than we even know, right? And then the second thing is your purpose, right? What are you here to actually do? Now, what I mean by that is, again, you could use it on a worldly perspective, you know, your purpose. If you're in academics, absolutely go 100%, get, you know, A's everywhere, every time, right? Whether you have the support or not. I had no support when I was younger. I had no guidance, nothing like that. So that's why my academics slipped a little bit. But then when I had slightly better mentors, it picked up a little bit. And Maharaj Kirpa, you know, I got a first in my mathematics degree. Yep. So this is the same kid that got 4% at A-levels, ended up with the first and average like 89-90% throughout my whole degree. And then I got a degree in my master's as well. So from academics, you know, managed to pull it back because I felt I had more of a purpose when I had better mentoring. From a work perspective as well, you know, don't ever chase money. We know that that's wrong, but don't ever feel that you can't earn that money. So don't ever look at a company and think, oh, I can't be a sort of CEO, you know. All these things on a sort of worldly perspective, that gives you a bit of purpose, what I'm here to do, what I'm here to achieve. Definitely have them goals, but the ultimate purpose, again, is to sort of merge back with Vaheguru, right? Well, to go back home, that lost soul waiting to be reunited with his beloved. So really, really continually check in on yourself. What is my worth? What is my purpose? And what you'll notice is that if you really consciously think about your life and what you're doing and where you're going, in every aspect, it will just get better and better, right? Some things we know we can't control. As you know, you've been through things, I've been through things, right? Completely out of our control. And sometimes they knock us down and they make us feel like we're not worth anything and we have no purpose. But just, you know, really go back to, you know, what it means to you. And for me, it was a Sikhi perspective, innit? And that will help ground you. And then if you're more of a grounded person, then you're constantly going to develop. And you're constant, like the conversations we're having about inclusion, for example. The main benefit of that is that if I learn about these things I don't know about, it's going to make me a better person. It's going to open my mind up, right?
You're adopting, you're putting more into your toolkit, aren't you? That's it. If you're armed, and they always say with knowledge brings power.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So that's a basic Sikh quote. Did you get the hoodie? I didn't get the hoodie.
No, they don't fit me, do they? Nothing fits me. Everything's too small.
Absolutely. I remember one point having a conversation with Jigaraj about that, and I said knowledge is power and poison because it, you know, depends how you use it. Like arm yourself, for example. Talwar can help save your life or end your life if you hold it on the wrong end. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those type of things, but definitely try to strive to be a better person today than you were yesterday. Have that groundedness of your worth and purpose, and then really focus. And if you have no mentors, right, I would always suggest finding one. Right, and if you can't find anyone, then go to Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj and they'll bring one in your life 100%. You ask Maharaj for anything and they'll bring it. And Maharaj Kirpa, and so many times in my life I wanted something and they have given it me. And sometimes it's like, okay, I'm taking the mick now, because was it Dinda de Lende Takwaye, right? At this point now I'm getting...
You continue to say, but you never get tired of...
He
never gets tired of giving.
Yeah, exactly. Maharaj never gets tired of giving, and at this point it was like, I got to sit down and earn it now. It's almost like I was given a bit of a credit here in terms of the things that Maharaj had given me, so I'm trying to reclaim it back by doing a bit of Gamai. But yeah, that's the advice I'd give to young people, and the future is as bleak or as bright as you want it to be. And because again, the world isn't going in a great place, and sometimes me and Bali, we worry about the future generations. We don't have kids, so our worries aren't the same as perhaps yours might be, but we still absolutely worry about the world that we're going to leave the next generations. But the next generation, this is your world for the taking, you know. Make it yours and make it a great one.
We had that same conversation in the car on the way here. So, you know, very simple things, but we were on that, you know, one place like, I brought bamboo toothbrushes because of this. If I can, you know, we've got to make little changes, at least start with something and you move on to this. And it's like you said, because you do think about whether it's your kids or not, it's what am I leaving behind for the next lot of people.
100%.
Knowledge of fact, I didn't know that Basic Sikhi use that. That's from House Party 2, that is.
Oh, that's probably where they got it from.
Queen Latifah does a rap on House Party 2. Two things I remember from that. I was a 13-year-old kid watching that, and like you said, when you're a kid and you're looking at how other minorities go through stuff, so most of my films were black films, that's what I watched. I remember the two quotes in that. One was "Time waits for no man," and the other one was "Knowledge is power." And they obviously had the quotes from Marcus Garvey, Haile Selassie and things like that. And, you know, they're powerful things as a kid when you read that and you're just like, yeah, actually, that is what Guru Gobind Singh basically said. Learn about all the other faiths, because you got to arm yourself with that toolkit. So when they give you the bullshit as well, you can counter that going, no, actually, I've read that. It doesn't say that.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, well, closing up, the one thing I want to do is, I know you said, you know, you've done some stuff for Sikh Mind and said, actually, I need some time away. I need myself. But one of the things that we're doing with this is actually asking people to go, can you give us your social media networks, so if people do go through this sort of thing, can they even just drop you a question or do whatever? And it might be that you go, I can't help you, and I'll put you in touch with somebody else. But I just think because of the topics you've talked about, there are going to be lots of people in that situation who go, actually, I feel like this, but what do I do? Or where can I go? So if you're happy, will you be able to share some of the links with the podcast?
Yeah, so the two main places to connect with me is Instagram.
Yep.
So my handle is HSButoy, which is my surname. So HSBUTOY.
Yep.
And that's on a more sort of personal social media level. Now, if you do follow me, if you see something that you don't like, that's fine. Don't just unfollow me thinking that this manda's not great. Challenge me on it. You know, that's the one caveat I would say. It's a private profile now. I will happily accept any followers who are real people.
Yeah.
And I'm happy, have any sort of dialogue if it's genuine and people want to learn. On a professional level, if you want to look at how we can work together about inclusion, diversity, well-being in the workplace, Harpreet Butoy, Butoy, you'll find me on LinkedIn as well. And what I share more on there is things that really impact people in the workplace. So professional or personal, social, either way, happy to connect with anyone that resonates.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. The other thing I just want to ask you before I go into any questions for us, is there anything you want to elaborate on what you've spoken about earlier? Is there anything, I've probably cut you off at some places and you've gone, shit, I wanted to say something else. Is there anything else you want to add to what you said?
The only other thing I was going to say, there's probably a few things. What I didn't do this time around was write down my answers. I thought, let's just let it flow naturally, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a decent environment and this isn't scripted or anything like that. But one of the things, we spoke about mental health and Sikhi, right? And sometimes it's not two different things. They're very intertwined. And your mental health will sort of tell you how far you're going to go in your Sikhi. If your mental health wavers, the first thing that goes is your Sikhi.
Yeah, of course.
Your Nithanim goes, right? So when we do these talks at Seek Your Mind, I always say, look, in Gurbani we read all the time, E man mereya, tu sada raho har nale, है And how is your mind going to stay with Vaheguru if you're struggling with it yourself, right?
Yeah.
And even that pangati itself, E man mereya, right? You don't say, oh my mind, if you are the mind, right? You wouldn't say that, would you? But the mind is actually separate. So think of it like sometimes the battle with your mind is like your true self versus that mind.
Yeah.
And if you focus on it from a mental health perspective, your Sikhi is going to go leaps and bounds. If you waver on your mental health, then your Sikhi will suffer as well.
Yeah.
So definitely, for anyone listening that is a Gursikh, the hard times are okay. Absolutely, Gurbani Kirtan is going to be the thing that ultimately heals you. But to get to that stage, sometimes you have to do other things as well, which might not be always deemed as Sikhi, like therapy, for example, like counselling or whatever, taking time off for yourself and things like that. So just having the two together, and then you'll see it goes leaps and bounds. And that's from a lived experience. Again, I always say, if I knew what I knew now 10, 15 years ago, I'd be a completely different person.
Yeah.
Sometimes we measure it, don't we, in terms of Sikhi, like how far I've gotten. And I feel I would have gotten even further if my mental health wasn't dragging me back so many times, right? But that's the only other thing I really wanted to mention. I don't think there's any other points from the questions that you said.
You sure?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add? There's no... Like I said, there's no limit on this, and if there is something, because I'm mindful, I did cut you off a couple of times. I thought, shit.
That's fine. When you cut me off, in my head I wrote down, make sure you mention this when he stops speaking, and then I did. So I'm happy with that.
That's fine. Have you got any questions for us?
And the only question is, Kamalpreet Mere Yara, right? Because that's a bit of a Bollywood plug there.
Yeah.
When are you going to let me interview you?
What about
Your life.
Man, what's the point, right? It's like having a conversation with like Fred West or whatever. All you're going to listen to is all the path I've done in my life, man.
Yeah.
Everything that I had to offer to the next generation or other people is out there already. It's either in books or the website or the Gatha or whatever. I've got nothing else to give. If I do a talk now, I'll just get cancelled.
They're cancelled, yeah.
So I don't want to do that.
Maybe we'll save you to last. Maybe on the next podcast, which we won't name because it's confidential at the moment. But maybe on the next podcast, I'd love to be able to interview you. And the only reason I say that is because you have a mindset, right? There's certain things, like if you think of the mind as a switchboard.
The issue is, right?
Oh, okay.
I'll give you this straight away. The issue is that we have started this podcast with those people who are positive role models, whether in the Punjabi community or the Gursikh community. I'm neither one of those. And my life is so far away from what Gurmat states it should be that I think if I'm preaching, it's a charlatan. So I can tell you my story and I can go, this is the shit I've been through and this is what life has impacted me on.
Yeah.
There's enough sob stories on there.
My point is, right, say you've got like a board with lots of switches on it, yeah?
Yeah.
We all have a mind, right? You have a mind, I have a mind. But if the mind is that board, certain things are switched on and certain things are switched off. Yeah? Some people are so blessed they have so many switched on and you're so envious, like how is this so natural to you? How are you able to do this and whatnot? And there's certain traits that you have, certain ways in which you think, and I'm not talking about how you live, but how you think, that I think is really beneficial for the youth, and maybe I'd like to, if possible, in the next podcast
I don't think that would be an issue. I think Singh's already trying to gear that up anyway. I don't mind. You're not going to shoot whatever questions you want.
Yeah, you've heard it here first. I'm going to interview Kamalpreet.
This is Kamalpreet's last day on the world. He's going to shoot himself tonight. Interview done. No, I don't mind, but I just think the things that you lot have all, there's a reason we are the flawed and foolish. The work that you lot do is impactful, and the talks that you lot go on about is impactful. I'll be 10 minutes in, and that's what I do. I put up a thing the other day that the funniest people are the most broken people. Yeah. And that's basically how I see myself. So I don't really want to share that.
Okay, cool. We'll wait for you to get a little bit more comfortable, and then when you are, we'll reconvene. Again, I'm not looking for a sort of you to pour your heart out.
Yeah.
Looking at more from a mind perspective, but whenever you're up for it, let's book in a date.
When Blackburn win the next Premier League, we're up for it, man. I'm well up for that. That ain't going to be long now. They're coming up this season, so we can do it then.
Cool.
Singh, I just want to say thank you very much. On behalf of the Flawed, Foolish and Fantastic podcast, I've learnt a lot today. I learn a lot every time I talk to you, to be quite honest, or I'm following your social media, and I think I always say, and I say it to my kids, it's really important because they're on Instagram and things like that. The stuff that you put up is it's my sort of thing. I love it. And I think it's really beneficial for other people. And I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast.
Nice. Thanks for having me.
I don't think you had a choice. We just rocked up at your house, and I really appreciate that.
I was going to say thanks for having me, but thanks for forcing me. It's probably closer to the truth. Closer to the truth.
Thanks for forcing me. But I think your work needs to be shared, and I think what you're doing is brilliant at the moment.
Yeah. Well, like I said, at the moment I'm going through a period where it's a bit private, and that's for my own mental health. Like Twitter was a very toxic place when I was public.
Yeah.
I'd always get slandered or slated or whatever. But now I'm just reconvening, regrouping, having a good year under my belt, and then who knows where I might be able to.
Where it goes from there.
Open this up a bit more. Yeah.
No problems. Right, with regards to the podcast, I just want to say thank you very much and close up with Fateh. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.